Chapter 1. The heart that didn't get eaten the rain outside was doing what it always does in this town, washing nothing clean. It came down with that steady, patient insistence that makes you think of a man who has decided to outlast you. It polished the street into a dark mirror, smeared the lights of passing cars into soft streaks, and tapped at the brownstone windows on West 35th Street, as if it had an appointment to keep. Inside, Nero Wolfe's office stayed warm and still, a place where lies came to cool off and get measured. The house had its usual evening order. Fritz had served dinner with the quiet ceremony that makes food seem like a moral duty, and Wolfe had performed his part with full devotion. The menu had included a roast that deserved a short speech and a sauce that deserved its own citizenship papers. When Wolfe is pleased with dinner, he becomes both more tolerant and more dangerous. More tolerant because he is temporarily content with the universe. More dangerous because he feels justified in correcting it. After dinner, he had taken his seat behind his desk, the desk that is not really a desk so much as a boundary line. Wolfe's chair, broad and firm, received him like a throne receiving a monarch who has never doubted his claim. The lamps were lit. The red leather chair in the corner waited for its next victim. The orchids upstairs were under their lights, living their clean, demanding lives, indifferent to rain and human incompetence. Everything was right, which is precisely when the doorbell rang. I was at my own desk in the outer office, sorting mail and pretending I enjoyed it. Wolfe considers mail a necessary nuisance. I consider it a nuisance with occasional entertainment. The bell rang again, impatient, and Fritz was already in the kitchen, so I went to the front door. On the stoop stood a young woman in a raincoat that had been good before it met New York weather. She held a small bakery box against her chest like a shield. Her hat was damp. Her cheeks were pale. Her eyes were bright in a way that had nothing to do with health. "Is Mr. Wolfe in?" she asked. "He is," I said. "That is a fact. Whether he will see you is a separate issue." "I have an appointment," she said quickly. "You have a belief," I told her. "Name?" "Lila Bran," she said. He said 7:15. I checked my memory. Wolfe had not mentioned Lila Bran. That did not prove anything. Wolfe does not always mention people he intends to see because Wolfe is not always in the mood to admit he intends to see them. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. She entered the hall and paused, taking in the house like someone who has heard stories and is now checking whether the stories were exaggerated. People often do that with Wolfe's brownstone. They expect mystery, velvet drapes and secret panels. What they get is solid comfort, polished wood, and the faint smell of Fritz's cooking hanging in the air like a promise. I took her coat and hung it on the rack. She clutched the box tighter. "Gift?" I asked. "Evidence," she said, and her voice wobbled on the word. That made it more interesting. I led her to Wolfe's office door and knocked once. Wolfe's voice came, deep and reluctant. "Yes." I opened the door and ushered her in. "He never rises unless you bring a gun or a priest." "Mr. Wolfe," I said. "Miss Lila Bran. She claims an appointment and carries a small box of evidence." Wolfe's eyes moved to the box, then back to her face. "Sit," Wolfe said, "and speak." Lila Bran sat on the red leather chair, keeping the box on her lap. She looked as if she had sat there in her mind 100 times, and in every version it had gone badly. "I brought you something," she said, and her voice was careful, as if she feared the words might break. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "You have already said that." She took a breath and lifted the box. "This was delivered to me today." Wolfe did not reach for it. He does not reach for objects until he has decided whether they deserve his fingers. "Delivered how?" he asked. "By messenger," she said. "A boy. He said it was from a bakery on 9th Avenue. He had a receipt. It was paid for. He asked me to sign. Your home?" Wolfe asked. "My office," she replied. "I work for Morrow and Pike." I knew Morrow and Pike. They were one of those firms that live on other people's disputes. A respectable law office with a respectable sign and a respectable appetite. Wolfe nodded slightly, as if the name fitted into a file drawer in his head. "And you signed," Wolfe said. "Yes," she said. "I thought it was a gift. It is Valentine week, you know." "I am aware of the calendar," Wolfe said dryly. Lila's mouth tightened. "I did not open it until later. When I did, it was wrong." Wolfe's eyes remained steady. "Wrong is vague." She looked at me briefly, then back to Wolfe. "It contained a heart-shaped cookie." I will admit my interest dipped. A heart-shaped cookie is not a crime. It is a social hazard, but not a crime. Wolfe's eyes did not dip. Wolfe's mind does not judge by category. It judges by anomaly. "A cookie," Wolfe said. "Continue." Lila opened the box carefully and lifted the wax paper. Inside lay a heart-shaped cookie, iced pink, with a thin white border. It was neat, glossy, and it looked like something made to be eaten by people who want to feel sentimental while chewing sugar. And it was broken in two. Not crumbled, not bitten, not torn. Broken cleanly, snapped along a sharp line that ran from the top curve down toward the point. The two halves lay slightly apart, like a heart that had been separated on purpose. A thin trail of crumbs lay on the paper, and the crumbs made a line, not random scatter. A line that pointed, unmistakably, toward the office door, toward the hall, toward the coat rack where I had just hung Lila Brand's raincoat. I felt my eyebrows rise. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Lila said softly, "I did not break it. I did not touch it. I opened the box and it was like this." Wolfe leaned forward slightly, not to pick it up, but to observe. His gaze moved from the break to the icing to the crumbs. "No bite marks," he said. "No," she whispered. "No torn edge," Wolfe said. "No," she repeated. Wolfe looked at the break again, as if it were handwriting. Then he said, quiet and precise, "Not hunger, nerves." Lila blinked. "What?" Wolfe sat back. "A person broke this heart without consuming it. That is not appetite. It is a message, a nervous message. The break is clean, but the crumbs are arranged. That requires a hand that trembles slightly, yet intends precision. It is not romantic. It is theatrical." I said, "In other words, it is not a treat. It is a performance." Wolfe glanced at me as if I had spoken in church. "Yes, Archie, you may speak occasionally if you do not embellish." I looked at the crumbs again. They had formed a line toward the door. It was neat enough to be intentional, not neat enough to be calm. Lila's voice was small. It frightened me. "Good," Wolfe said. "It was meant to." She swallowed. "I thought it was a threat." "It may be," Wolfe said. "Or it may be a warning. Or it may be the signal of a mind in distress. Context will decide." "You have not provided context." Lila's hands clenched on her purse. I did not know where else to go. "You could have gone to the police," Wolfe said. "I cannot," she replied quickly. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Because you are guilty of something." "No," she said too fast. "Because my employer would forbid it. Because it would become public. Because it would involve clients." Wolfe nodded slowly. "Ah, law, privacy, reputation. These are often the curtains behind which mischief performs." "Who is your client?" Lila hesitated, then said, "The Rowland Foundation." That name was worth a little attention. The Rowland Foundation had money, the kind of money that hires lawyers to prevent embarrassment from becoming expensive. Wolfe's eyes did not change, but I could see interest settle more firmly. "What matter?" Wolfe asked. Lila licked her lips. "A dispute over a bequest." Wolfe made a small sound. "So, a dead man's intentions fought over by the living continue." Lila drew a breath. "The Foundation's founder, Everett Rowland, died 3 months ago. His will left a substantial amount to the Foundation, but there is a challenge. A nephew is contesting. There is also a private codicil involved." Wolfe's eyes sharpened. "Private?" "Yes," she said. "It was not filed with the original will. It surfaced later." "And you," Wolfe said, "are involved." "I am an associate," she said. I handle documents. I coordinate meetings. I am not in charge. Wolfe's voice was flat. No one is merely an associate when documents are involved. Lila flushed. I did not mean, I do not decide strategy. You decide who touches paper, Wolfe said. That is often more important. She swallowed. I have been working late. I have been taking files home. I have been careful. Wolfe's eyebrows rose slightly. Careful because you have reason. Lila's eyes flicked away. There have been odd things. Wolfe waited. He is excellent at waiting because he does not fill silence with nervous chatter. He makes silence do the work. Lila forced herself. A week ago, someone left a bouquet at my desk. No card. Just lilies, I said. Lilies cute. Lila looked at me sharply. They were funeral lilies. That took the cuteness out of it. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Continue. 3 days ago, she said, a file folder on my desk was moved. Not stolen, just shifted. A tab was out of alignment. I noticed because I am particular. Wolfe nodded once. He approves of particular. Then today, she said, this cookie. Wolfe leaned back. A series of signals. Not outright theft. Not direct harm, pressure, anxiety. Someone wants you unsettled. Yes, she whispered. And I am. Wolfe's gaze returned to the cookie. The crumbs point toward your coat. I blinked, toward the coat rack. Wolfe nodded. A line is a direction. It suggests the message is connected to departure, arrival, or concealment. In your case, you bring your coat. You carry things. You said you have been taking files home. Lila's face tightened. I have. Wolfe's voice was steady. Then the message is simple. Someone is aware. Someone is watching your movements with papers. The broken heart is sentiment turned into threat. It says, perhaps, do not carry what you carry. Lila's eyes widened. But I have to. It is my work. Wolfe's eyes stayed calm. Work is a word people use to excuse foolishness. You will tell me what you carried. Lila hesitated. Wolfe's tone hardened. Miss Bran, you have come to me, not to a priest. I do not absolve. I solve. If you withhold facts, you will leave and you will remain frightened. Her lips parted. She looked down at her hands, then up, and the fear in her eyes had a sharp edge now, anger at being cornered. All right, she said. I carried the codicil. That was a word with weight, I said. The private codicil? Yes, she said. Not the original, a copy, but a copy that has a handwritten note attached. A note from Mr. Rowland to the Foundation's board. It explains his reasons. It makes the nephew look bad. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Bad how? Greedy, she said, cruel. It says the nephew threatened him. Wolfe's gaze became still. That note would influence settlement. Yes, she said. It could end the dispute, or inflame it. And you carried it, Wolfe said. Yes, she admitted, because my employer asked me to keep it out of the office overnight. We were expecting opposing counsel to inspect certain files tomorrow. He did not want it seen. Wolfe's mouth tightened. So your employer is hiding a document. It is not hiding, she protested. It is protecting. The codicil has not been entered into court records yet. It is sensitive. Wolfe's eyes were flat. Sensitive is another word for powerful. She swallowed. I know. Who else knows you carried it? Wolfe asked. Only Mr. Pike, she said, naming one of the partners, and his assistant. Wolfe's eyebrows rose. Partners have assistants. Assistants have ears. Ears have owners. You are naive, Miss Brown. Lila's face reddened. I did not mean. Wolfe waved it away. Never mind. You have come with a broken cookie. We require more. Where is the copy now? At home, she said. Wolfe's eyes narrowed further. In your coat pocket? No, she said quickly. In my desk drawer at home. Wolfe nodded slightly. And you came here without it? Yes, that is wise, Wolfe said, and that was his version of a compliment. Lila's shoulders sagged a fraction. Mr. Wolfe, I am afraid someone will come to my apartment, or someone will break in, or someone will make it look like I stole it. Wolfe's gaze flicked to me. He did not say anything, but I knew the look. It was the look that means he is about to volunteer my legs, I said. If you want me to spend a night in your apartment listening to rain and burglars, you are going to have to offer something better than cookies. Lila stared. I will pay. Wolfe's voice was immediate. Of course you will. I looked at Wolfe. Before you commit my evening, maybe we should know why the cookie broke. Wolfe's eyes returned to the cookie and the crumb line. Yes, that is not trivial. It suggests the person who delivered it, or the person who prepared it afterward, wanted you to associate the message with your coat, your departure, your carrying. The line of crumbs is a pointer, but there is another detail. He leaned forward again, not touching, only observing. The break is clean. A hard cookie breaks cleanly, only if it is firm. If it were fresh and soft, it would crumble. Therefore it was baked earlier, allowed to harden, and then snapped deliberately, I said. So it was made to break, or selected to break, Wolfe said. Either way, preparation, Lila whispered. That means someone planned this. Yes, Wolfe said, and planning suggests purpose beyond childish intimidation. He looked at her. Who benefits if you are frightened into yielding the codicil? Lila's mouth tightened. The nephew. And perhaps others, Wolfe added. Foundation board members who prefer settlement, lawyers who prefer fees. Anyone who wants to control the narrative, but the primary candidate is the nephew name. Calvin Rowland, she said. Wolfe nodded. Does he know you personally? No, she said. I have seen him across conference tables. He is polite. Polite, Wolfe said, and his tone made the word unpleasant. Does he have associates? Yes, she said. A consultant. A man named Egan. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Egan. He does not speak much, Lila said. He watches. Wolfe nodded. Watchers are useful. They notice coats, I said. And cookies. Lila's voice tightened. Mr. Wolfe, I do not care about theories. I want to be safe. Wolfe's expression softened slightly, which in Wolfe is the equivalent of putting a hand on someone's shoulder without touching them. Safety, Wolfe said, is sometimes purchased with understanding. We will begin with a simple act. Archie will accompany you to your apartment to secure the document and to observe whether anyone observes us. Lila's eyes widened. Tonight. Yes, Wolfe said. I opened my mouth to complain, then closed it. Complaining is my hobby, but it rarely changes Wolfe's decisions. Wolfe continued. We will then determine how the cookie was delivered. We will speak to the bakery. We will identify the messenger. We will examine whether the cookie was broken before delivery or after, and we will learn who had access to make crumbs point toward a coat. Lila stared at him. That seems impossible. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Nothing is impossible, only inconvenient, I said. I hate when he says that, because it means I will be the one inconvenienced. Wolfe ignored me. There is one more matter. You said the cookie cracked on my desk. Lila blinked. It did. Wolfe's mouth tightened. It did not merely arrive broken, you brought it intact, and then it broke here. I stared at the cookie halves. Wait, it was already broken when she opened it. Lila shook her head quickly. Number, it was whole. I swear. I took it out. I looked at it. I put the paper back. I carried it here. It was whole when I came in. Wolfe's eyes stayed steady. Then it broke when you placed it on my desk. Lila's face went pale. Yes. I leaned closer, frowning. How does that happen? Wolfe looked at the desk surface, then at Lila's hands, then at the coat rack beyond the office door. Pressure, Wolfe said. A firm cookie will snap if stressed. If the box was squeezed at a certain angle while carried, a fracture could begin without visible separation, a micro crack. Then a slight additional pressure, such as setting it down, completes the break, I said. So it was pre-cracked. Wolfe nodded. Yes, prepared to break at the moment of presentation, theatre. A message timed to an audience. Lila's voice shook. You mean someone wanted it to break in front of you? Wolfe's eyes were cold. Someone wanted me to see it as proof of your distress. Someone wanted me involved. I stared at Wolfe. That is flattering. It is annoying, Wolfe corrected. He looked at Lila. Miss Bran, you will answer one final question. Why did you come to me instead of remaining with your firm? Lila swallowed. Her eyes flicked away, then back, because I do not trust them. Wolfe's eyebrows rose. You do not trust your own employer. I trust Mr. Pike, she said. I do not trust everyone around him. There are too many hands, too many late nights, too much whispering. Wolfe nodded slowly. So the message may not be from the nephew. It may be from within your own side. Someone who wants the codicil controlled, not merely obtained. Lila's voice was thin. Yes. Wolfe leaned back, and for a moment he looked almost satisfied, which is a dangerous look on Wolfe. It means he has found a shape. Very well, he said. Archie will accompany you. Fritz will provide him with a raincoat and an umbrella, neither of which will help him. I will remain here and consider the possibilities, which is the only useful response to rain. I stood. If I am going out into the weather, I want one thing on the record. When I drown, you will say something nice at the funeral. Wolfe's eyes flicked to me. I will say you were adequate. Lila almost smiled, then did not. The fear was still there, but now it was edged with a new thing. The small relief of having handed her anxiety to a man who treats anxiety like a clue instead of a weakness. I went to the door and called for Fritz. He appeared calm as always, and took in the situation with one glance, the broken cookie, the pale woman, Wolfe's expression. Fritz, Wolfe said. Archie will accompany Miss Bran home, provide him with appropriate clothing. Also, later, we will require the name of a bakery on 9th Avenue that produces heart-shaped cookies with pink icing. Yes, sir, Fritz said, as if that were the most ordinary request in the world. Lila rose, and I escorted her to the hall. Her coat hung on the rack, and as I reached for it, my eyes went to the line of crumbs on the wax paper in the box, still pointing toward that rack as if the cookie had tried to tell us where to look. I lifted the coat off the hook and felt its weight, heavy with rain. I do not usually suspect coats. Coats are innocent. They keep you warm. They hide your elbows. They do not plot. But that night, with a crumb line pointing like an arrow, I looked at that coat as if it might have hands. When I handed it to Lila, she slipped her arms into it quickly, like someone eager to armor herself. I said, low enough that only she could hear, "Did anyone touch your coat at the office today?" She froze. Then she shook her head too quickly. That did not answer the question. It answered the fear. I looked back toward Wolfe's office door. Wolfe would be at his desk, watching a broken cookie like it was handwriting, thinking about nervous hands, planned cracks, and a document that could move millions by moving one man's pride. The rain kept tapping at the windows, washing nothing clean. And we were about to step into it, carrying a heart that had not been eaten, a message that had not been spoken, and a coat that might have been touched by someone whose nerves were not hunger, but intent. Chapter 2, The Coat with Sugar, in its secrets. I have always found that permission is a fine thing when you are borrowing a neighbor's ladder. In Wolfe's office, with a nervous client and a broken heart on the desk, permission becomes an extra step between you and the fact you need. Extra steps are for dancers, not for detectives. The crumb line on the wax paper pointed toward the hall like an accusing finger that had been trained by a kindergarten teacher. It was neat enough to be deliberate, sloppy enough to be human. Wolfe had looked at it as if it were handwriting, and he had said, in that calm tone that makes people believe the universe is orderly, not hunger, nerves. That was all very well for Wolfe, sitting warm behind his desk, with his orchids upstairs and Fritz's coffee on the schedule. I was the one about to go out into the rain with Lila Bran, and an uneasy feeling about a coat rack. We were in the hall. Fritz was retrieving my raincoat and umbrella, which was like retrieving bandages for a drowning man. Lila stood by the rack, her raincoat half on, fingers fussing with the collar as if she could button the fear inside it. Her eyes kept flicking back toward Wolfe's office door, as if she expected his voice to follow and tell her she had forgotten some important detail. I had asked her if anyone had touched her coat at the office. She had said no, too quickly. People who answer too quickly are not lying for effect. They are lying for safety. I did not press her, not yet. Pressing a frightened person in a hallway is like pressing a sponge. You get water, not clarity, instead. I did what I always do when Wolfe sends me on a task that requires legs. I looked for the nearest shortcut. The coat rack held 4 coats, Lila's damp and ordinary, my own which I had thrown there earlier, with the casual confidence of a man whose coat has never been involved in a crime. Fritz's, a neat dark coat that smelled faintly of soap and kitchen, and one more, heavier, better cloth, hung slightly apart, as if it did not wish to mingle. That last coat had not been there when I opened the front door to admit Lila. I am attentive to my own hallway because it is my hallway. The coat had arrived after. I tilted my head toward Wolfe's office and called, "Boss." Wolfe's voice came, impatient. "What is it, Archie?" "Do we have another visitor?" I asked. There was a pause. Then Wolfe's heavy steps and the office door opening. Wolfe appeared in the hall, filling it in the way he fills any space he occupies. His eyes went to the coat rack, then to me. "A man arrived," Wolfe said. "While you were attending to Miss Brand's coat, I instructed Fritz to have him wait in the office." "And his coat," I said, nodding at the expensive one, "is hanging right under the crumb arrow." Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes." Lila's head snapped around. "There is a man here." Wolfe looked at her. "Yes, a Mr. Mark Danner." Lila's face changed. Her eyes widened, then tightened. "Mark Danner is here." Wolfe's tone was flat. "You know him?" She swallowed. "He is a client. Not mine. He is a publisher. He is involved with the Roland Foundation in a different way." Wolfe's gaze stayed steady. "How?" Lila hesitated. "The foundation funds literary prizes. Mr. Danner's company publishes the prize winners. There are contracts, publicity." Wolfe nodded once. Money and vanity, always present. Lila's hands clenched. "I did not tell him I was coming here." Wolfe's eyebrows rose slightly. "Perhaps he did not come because of you. Perhaps he came because of a cookie." I said, "Or because of a coat." Wolfe ignored my flourish. He turned slightly. "Archie, bring him in." "Sure," I said. "And while I am at it, I will bring in the rain. It is eager." Wolfe went back to his office. Lila looked at me, her eyes full of questions she did not dare ask. I said, "Stay here a moment. Do not touch the coats. Do not move anything. If you need to breathe, do it quietly." She blinked, then nodded. It was the first time I had spoken to her like Wolfe would, and she obeyed like a person who has decided obedience might keep her alive. I went into the office. Mark Danner stood near the bookcase, hands at his sides, posture carefully composed. He was in his 40s, a slender man with tidy cuffs and a tie knotted with deliberate care. His hair was combed smooth. His face would have been handsome if it had not been for his eyes. His eyes were messy. They darted too quickly, landing and leaving, like birds that do not trust the branch they are on. He looked at Wolfe's desk, at the broken cookie, at Wolfe, at me, and then away as if his gaze had burned him. A man who runs a publishing house should be used to lying, but he should also be used to controlling it. Danner's control was slipping. Wolfe sat behind his desk with the expression of a man who has been interrupted by nonsense and intends to charge for it. "Mr. Danner," Wolfe said, "you have arrived without appointment. State your purpose." Danner's mouth tightened. He tried a smile and failed. "Mr. Wolfe, I apologize. I was told you were seeing Miss Brand. I was concerned." Wolfe's eyebrows rose. "Told by whom?" Danner hesitated. By someone at Morrow and Pike." Wolfe's gaze sharpened. Name. Dana's lips pressed together. I do not know the name. A receptionist. Wolfe's voice cooled. You do not know the name of a person whose information caused you to come to my house in rain. That is either careless or dishonest. Dana's cheeks colored slightly. He swallowed. Mr. Wolfe, there is trouble around the Roland Foundation matter. I heard that Miss Brand received something. Odd. I wanted to ensure she did not do anything rash. Wolfe looked at him. Rash such as what? Dana's eyes flicked to the cookie halves, then away. Rash such as taking documents outside the firm. Rash such as speaking to outsiders. Wolfe's tone remained flat. You are an outsider. Dana's mouth opened, then closed. He forced a thin smile. I mean outsiders with less discretion. Wolfe leaned back slightly. Discretion is a word used by men who wish to control what others know. What do you wish to control, Mr. Dana? Dana's eyes darted. Nothing. I only want this resolved. Wolfe made a small sound. It was not agreement. It was impatience. I had been standing near the office door, watching Dana's hands and his eyes. I also watched the cookie, because the cookie had become, absurdly, the center of the room. The heart-shaped cookie lay broken cleanly. The crumbs had pointed toward the hall. The hall had a coat rack. The coat rack had Dana's coat hung closest to the crumb arrow. Wolfe could interrogate Dana all night and still not get the truth. If Dana had decided it was not safe, Wolfe knows that. Wolfe also knows when to let me do the part of the job that is less polite. I did not ask permission. I asked Pockets, because Pockets answer faster. I stepped out into the hall, moved to the coat rack, and lifted Dana's coat off the hook. Lila Brand's head jerked up. What are you doing? Working, I said. She stared at me alarmed. You cannot do that. Watch me, I said. I checked the inside label. A fine name, stitched in careful thread, Mark Dana. The coat was heavy, good wool lined smoothly. The kind of coat a man buys to tell the world he is respectable. Respectable coats have pockets like any other. They also have secrets like any other. I slid my fingers into the right pocket. My fingertips met something fine and dry. I withdrew my hand and held my fingers under the hall light. There was a dust on them, pale and faint, like flour. But it was not flour. It had a sheen to it. It was icing dust, the kind that comes from a cookie iced and handled, the kind that does not float into your pocket by accident, unless you spend time with cookies or with someone who has. Inside the pocket I felt another small object. I pulled it out. A folded scrap of wax paper with a smear of pink icing on it and a few crumbs. I did not need Wolfe to interpret that. Even I could read it. I heard Lila inhale sharply. That is impossible. Nothing is impossible, I told her, because Wolfe's phrases are contagious and I hated myself for using it. I carried the coat into the office and hung it over the back of the yellow chair. Then I held up my fingers. Boss, I said. Right pocket, icing dust. Wolfe's eyes narrowed, and for the first time Dana's composure cracked openly. His gaze snapped to the coat, then to my fingers, then to Wolfe. That is absurd, Dana blurted. I did not eat anything. Wolfe did not argue. Wolfe rarely argues when he has a fact. He simply sets the fact on the table and watches people trip over it. He said calmly, Mr. Goodwin has not accused you of eating. He has merely shown evidence of contact. Dana's face flushed. Contact with what? Wolfe's gaze went to the broken cookie. With that. Dana swallowed. I have not touched it. Wolfe's voice was steady. Then explain the icing dust in your pocket. Dana's hands clenched and unclenched. It is from earlier. I was at a meeting. There were pastries, I said. Heart-shaped pastries with pink icing. Dana snapped his eyes to me. I did not say heart-shaped. Wolfe's eyes sharpened slightly. You did not need to. You have offered an explanation that is vague and therefore convenient. Convenient explanations are often rehearsed. Dana drew a breath, trying to regain control. Mr. Wolfe, This is ridiculous. I am a professional man. I do not put cookies in my pocket. You may not, Wolfe said. But someone may have put something in your pocket. Dana's eyes widened. Someone, Wolfe's tone remained calm. Yes, that is possible, but we do not accept possibility when we can examine probability. He turned his head slightly. Archie, the wax paper. I handed Wolfe the folded scrap I had taken from the pocket. Wolfe took it delicately like an orchid leaf and held it under the lamp. There was a smear of pink icing, a clean line, and tiny crumbs. The crumbs were few, but they were aligned in a way that reminded me of the crumb arrow in the box. Someone with nervous hands and an intention for direction. Wolfe studied it without touching the smear. Then he looked at Dana. You were near the cookie, Wolfe said. Dana's voice rose. Number Wolfe's eyes did not move. You were near it, or near the box, or near the person who carried it. I do not yet know which, but the icing dust in your pocket is not theoretical. Dana's mouth tightened. This is harassment. Wolfe's voice was quiet, and the quiet made it sharper. It is inquiry. Harassment is what you came to prevent, I suspect. You said you wished to ensure Miss Brand did not do anything rash. That implies she has something you fear she may do. Dana's eyes flicked toward the hall, where Lila stood. He tried to compose his face into concern again, but the concern looked forced now. Miss Brand, he called, voice softening. Lila, this is out of proportion. You are frightened. Let us be sensible. Lila stepped into the office doorway, still wearing her raincoat, eyes fixed on Dana's face. She looked less frightened now, and more angry, which is always better. Sensible, she said. You mean quiet. Dana's cheeks flushed. I mean safe, Wolfe said. Safety is not achieved by concealment. It is achieved by clarity. Miss Brand has brought me a message. You have arrived at my house, uninvited with icing in your pocket. That is not coincidence. Dana's jaw tightened. I came because I heard she had received a threatening item. From whom? Wolfe asked. Dana hesitated. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. From whom? Dana swallowed. From Mr. Pike. Lila's head snapped. Mr. Pike told you. Dana's eyes flicked to her. He was concerned. He did not want you to panic. Lila's voice rose. So he told you to come here. Dana's mouth tightened. He told me you had gone to Wolfe. He said you were upset. He asked me to calm you. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Why would a partner in a law firm ask a publisher to calm an associate? Dana's face went pale. Because I know her. Wolfe's tone was flat. In what manner? Lila stiffened. We are not discussing that. Wolfe's gaze moved to her, then back to Dana. We are discussing anything relevant. Your reluctance is understandable but irrelevant. Dana's voice was tight. We were involved briefly, it ended. Lila's cheeks flushed, anger and humiliation mixing. It ended because you lied. Dana flinched. His eyes darted, messy eyes, tidy cuffs. Wolfe did not comment on romance. Wolfe treats romance as a complication introduced by nature to distract men from logic. He said, this is useful. It provides motive for familiarity and for interference. Now, Mr. Dana, explain why your pocket contains icing dust. Either you handled the cookie or you handled the box. Dana's throat moved. He stared at the cookie halves on Wolfe's desk as if they were a weapon. I did not eat it, he said, and his voice was almost pleading. I am not a child with sweets. I came straight here. I did not stop anywhere. I did not buy anything. Wolfe nodded once. I have not accused you of eating. Your insistence is misplaced. Dana's hands clenched. Then what are you accusing me of? Wolfe's voice remained calm. Of contact of knowledge, of nervousness, not hunger. He leaned forward slightly. Tell me, Mr. Dana, did you bring this cookie? Dana's eyes widened. Number Wolfe's gaze did not soften. Did you arrange its delivery? Number Wolfe's tone remained steady. Did you know it would break when presented? Dana's mouth opened, then closed. That pause was not a denial. It was a collapse of rehearsal. I felt my mouth tighten into a grin I did not trust. That pause, I said, was loud. Dana's eyes snapped to me. You are twisting my words, Wolfe said. No, Mr. Dana, you are twisting your silence. He sat back again, hands folded, expression composed. Wolfe enjoys the moment when a man realizes his own control is cracking. Mr. Dana, Wolfe said, you are not the primary architect of this message. If you were, you would have ensured your pocket was clean. You are instead a participant or a carrier. The icing dust is fine and pale, like fear that learned to float. Someone used you or tried to use you. Dana's face flushed with anger. Used me? Wolfe nodded. Yes, a cookie delivered to Miss Bran, a crumb arrow pointing to a coat, a fracture timed to break in my office. It is a performance designed to involve me. You arrived because Mr. Pike told you she was here. Mr. Pike has reason to control the codicil. You have reason to control Miss Bran. Someone has arranged a small drama with sugar and paper. Lila's voice was low. Mr. Pike asked you to come, and you did. Dana looked at her, and the concern on his face now looked real, which made it more complicated. I did it because I did not want you hurt. You did it because you did not want me to speak, she replied. Dana flinched. He did not deny it. Wolfe's eyes remained steady. This is enough for the moment. Archie, retrieve a clean sheet of paper and a small brush. I blinked. A brush? Wolfe's voice was impatient. Yes, from Fritz's sewing drawer if necessary. We will collect the icing dust from Mr. Dana's pocket lining and compare it to the cookie's icing. The color will be distinctive. A bakery's icing is consistent. If it matches, then Mr. Dana had direct contact with this cookie or with the box containing it. Dana's face went paler. This is absurd. Wolfe's tone did not change. Absurdity is irrelevant. Accuracy is relevant. I went to the kitchen, found Fritz, and explained. Fritz's eyebrows rose slightly, but he produced a small brush used for cleaning delicate equipment and a sheet of paper. When I returned, Wolfe directed me to turn the coat pocket inside out carefully. I did. The pocket lining showed a fine dust, pale, and a little of it clung near the seam as if it had been rubbed there. Wolfe watched while I brushed it onto the paper. The dust formed a faint pile barely visible, but there, Wolfe leaned forward, eyes narrowing, then looked at the cookie icing. Observe, Wolfe said. I leaned in. The dust had a slight pink tint, not enough to shout, enough to whisper. The cookie icing was pink. The wax paper smear was pink. Wolfe nodded once. Consistent. Dana's shoulders sagged. I did not do this. Wolfe's voice was calm. Perhaps not, but you are connected. That is sufficient for now. He turned to Lila. Miss Bran, you will not go home alone. Archie will accompany you, as I said. But first you will answer one question. Lila's eyes widened. What? Wolfe's gaze was steady. Did Mr. Pike instruct you to carry the codicil home? Lila hesitated, then nodded. Yes. And did he specify you should wear that coat? Wolfe asked, nodding toward her raincoat. Lila blinked. Number Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Did anyone at the firm comment on your coat? Lila's throat moved. The receptionist did. She said it was pretty. Wolfe's voice was flat. And you have said you do not know her name. That is unfortunate. He turned to Dana. Mr. Dana, why is your coat on my rack? Dana blinked. Because I took it off. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Why did you remove it immediately upon entering, before being invited into my office? Dana flushed. Because it is wet. Wolfe nodded once. Yes, but you hung it in a particular place, closest to the crumb arrow, instead of on the other hook. That suggests attention. You noticed the crumbs. Dana's eyes widened. I did not. Wolfe's voice remained steady. You did. Your pocket already carried icing dust. You saw the crumbs and understood they were directed. That is why you hung your coat there, as if aligning yourself with the message or attempting to conceal the clue by proximity. Dana's mouth opened, then closed. He looked at the coat, then at Lila, then at Wolfe. His messy eyes were now frantic. "I came to help," he said, and his voice shook. "I did not know about the cookie until I arrived. Mr. Pike called me and said Lila had taken something home, something that could ruin everything if mishandled. He said she was panicking. He said you could calm her, but he did not want her telling you about the codicil. He told me to come here and persuade her to hand it over to me. He said I could keep it safe." Lila's face went rigid. "So you came to take it?" Dana's voice cracked. "I came to keep you from being used." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "And yet you were used?" Dana swallowed. "Yes." Wolfe leaned back. "Mr. Pike has attempted to create a controlled channel. He sent you to retrieve the codicil. Someone sent a cookie to frighten Miss Bran. The cookie was engineered to break in my office to secure my involvement. Meanwhile, you arrived with icing dust already in your pocket. That suggests you had contact with the cookie or its box before coming here." Dana shook his head. "I did not." Wolfe's tone hardened. "Then you will explain it." Dana's hands trembled. He stared at the cookie, then closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his messy eyes looked resigned. "I went to the bakery," he admitted. "Earlier. Today Mr. Pike asked me to. He said he wanted to send Lila something gentle, something that would remind her to be careful. He said a heart cookie would make her laugh. I ordered it. I touched it. I did not think it would be broken. They handed it to me in a box. I delivered it to the messenger service. I never opened it again. I swear." Wolfe nodded slowly. "And the break?" Dana's voice was thin. "I did not break it." Wolfe's gaze was steady. "Perhaps the bakery did. Perhaps the messenger did. Perhaps Mr. Pike did not tell you the full plan, but you are now an established link between the bakery and Miss Bran. That is valuable." He looked at me. "Archie, you will accompany Miss Bran home, secure the codicil, and observe whether anyone observes you. You will also, on your way, stop at the bakery on 9th Avenue and inquire about the order. Obtain the name of the person who prepared it and the person who boxed it. Do not be charming. Be effective." "I can manage one of those," I said. Wolfe ignored me. He looked at Dana. "Mr. Dana, you will remain available. Do not leave town. Do not call Mr. Pike. If you do, I will know." Dana stared. "How?" Wolfe's expression was placid. "Because I am Nero Wolfe." That is not an answer, but it often works like one. Lila Bran stood in the doorway. Raincoat on, face pale but eyes steadier. She looked at Dana, and for a moment something like grief crossed her face. Then it hardened into resolve. "I trusted you," she said quietly. Dana's mouth tightened. "I tried." Wolfe's voice cut in dismissive. "This is not a romance. It is an inquiry. Archie, take her." I took her arm, guided her toward the hall, and retrieved my own coat. Fritz handed me the umbrella and looked at Lila with kind eyes. "Be careful," Fritz said. Lila nodded, and for the first time she spoke to him like he mattered. "Thank you." As we stepped out into the rain, I glanced back through the open office door. Wolfe sat behind his desk, the broken heart cookie still in 2 pieces, crumbs still pointing toward the rack, and a fine pale powder on a sheet of paper that Wolfe had already filed away where the truth keeps its fingerprints. He had not argued with Dana. He had not scolded him for being a fool. Wolfe rarely wastes energy on scolding unless it is entertaining. He had simply collected the powder, the kind that floats from sugar and from fear, and he had put it in his mind where it would stick, and I knew, as the rain hit my face and Lila's coat grew heavier, that this case was not going to be solved by appetite. It was going to be solved by nerves. Chapter 3, a publisher, a contract, a vanishing man. When I got back to the brownstone, the rain had finished working on my collar and moved on to my cuffs. It was close to 2 in the morning, the hour when decent citizens are asleep and indecent ones are either busy or pretending to be. Fritz let me in with the same calm he would have used if I had returned from the pantry with a jar of olives. "You are wet," he observed. "I have noticed," I told him. "The weather is persistent." He took my coat with efficient sympathy and handed me a towel. The house was quiet in that particular way it gets at night, as if the furniture has relaxed because Wolfe is no longer pacing the floor in annoyance at humanity. The office door was closed. Wolfe did not like being disturbed after midnight, unless the disturbance promised profit or intellectual pleasure. I went in anyway. Wolfe was behind his desk, without his hat, without his coat, in his vest and shirt sleeves. That meant he had not gone to bed. If Wolfe stays up past midnight, something is wrong with the world, or something is right with a problem. He was reading, but his eyes were not on the page. His eyes were on the cookie. The heart-shaped cookie still lay broken in two on the blotter. The crumbs still formed their neat little arrow. Beside it, under a paperweight, was the sheet on which we had brushed the icing dust from Mark Danner's coat pocket. Wolfe had arranged it all like a display. He was not sentimental, but he respected evidence. He glanced up at me. "You have returned." "I have," I said. "Lila is alive. The codicil is in a desk drawer, with 3 locks, and the bakery on 9th Avenue has a clerk who lies badly." Wolfe's eyebrows rose slightly. "You have been industrious." "I had a night," I said. "If you want details now, I will collapse on your carpet, and you can step around me." Wolfe regarded me with mild irritation. Then he said, "Tomorrow." That was a relief. I went upstairs, got out of wet clothes, and fell into bed with the satisfaction of a man who has survived rain and other people's motives. In the morning, the brownstone returned to its usual order. Fritz made coffee that could have persuaded a corpse to sign a confession. Wolfe had his orchid hour, which means he went upstairs at 9 and did not return until 11. And in that time he became a different man, less annoyed by humans because he had spent an hour with plants that do not lie. When he came down, he was refreshed and therefore dangerous. I was at my desk when the doorbell rang again. I answered it and found Mark Danner on the stoop, hat in hand, coat buttoned, tie knotted, cuffs tidy. His eyes were still messy, but now the mess had shifted from panic to urgency. He looked like a man who has discovered that money and pride can both bleed. "I need to see Wolfe," he said. "You need a lot of things," I told him. "Come in before the rain decides to adopt you." He stepped inside and glanced toward the coat rack as if he expected it to accuse him again. I took his coat and hung it on a hook far from the others, mostly to amuse myself. He followed me into the office, walking carefully like a man entering a room where he has previously lost control. Wolfe was behind his desk, clean and composed, as if he had been born there. The cookie and crumbs were gone, which meant Wolfe had decided that part of the evidence had served its initial purpose and could now be filed Wolfe-like's order. He will tolerate chaos only when it is useful. Danner stopped a few feet from the desk and did not sit. He held a leather folder under one arm and kept his hands in view as if they might betray him. Wolfe watched him for a moment, then said, "Mr. Danner, you have returned. That suggests either gratitude or desperation." Danner's mouth tightened. "Desperation." Wolfe nodded. "Then speak, briefly." Danner stepped forward, opened the leather folder, and removed a contract. He laid it on Wolfe's desk like a body tag, flat and careful, as if it might bite. "This is why I am here," he said. Wolfe did not touch it. "A contract is not a corpse." "It may be," Danner said. His voice was controlled, but it trembled at the edges. "If it dies, my company may follow." I leaned back in my chair and watched him. Publishers usually have practiced arrogance. They deal in words and believe words can purchase anything. Danner's arrogance had been scrubbed off by fear. Wolfe's eyes moved over the contract without lifting a finger. "Whose contract?" Danner swallowed. "Clay Mercer." The name meant nothing to me, which made it suspicious. If a man can threaten a publisher's ear, he is usually visible. Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. "Writer?" "Yes," Danner said quickly. "My star writer. The book launches in 2 nights. It is the book we have bet the year on. We have publicity scheduled, printing runs, distributors. If Mercer does not appear, the launch collapses. The reviews become speculation, the papers sniff blood. Competitors circle. Wolfe made a small sound. You are melodramatic. I am realistic, Danner insisted. Mercer is not just a writer. He is a brand. He sells. He fills rooms. If he vanishes, my shareholders will not ask why. They will ask who failed. Wolfe's gaze stayed steady, and he has vanished. Danner nodded, and his tidy cuffs looked ridiculous against the tremble in his fingers. 2 nights ago, he left his apartment to meet someone. He never returned. I said, police. Danner's eyes flashed. Not yet. Of course not, Wolfe said, tone dry. The city's sniffing blood. You prefer to keep the mess private. Yes, Danner said. If the police become involved, the story becomes public. If the story becomes public, the book becomes a circus. Mercer's disappearance becomes part of the marketing, and that is the worst thing I can imagine, because it is out of my control. Wolfe's eyes flicked to the contract. And this contract is relevant how? Danner drew a breath. It has a clause, a morality clause. If Mercer fails to appear for promotional obligations without acceptable cause, the contract allows me to pursue damages. But it also allows his agent to claim breach if I fail to protect his safety. Wolfe's eyebrows rose. Protect his safety. You are now responsible for the safety of an adult writer. Only in legal language, Danner said, but legal language is what ruins companies. Wolfe's tone was flat. What do you want from me? Danner's messy eyes fixed on Wolfe. I want you to find Clay Mercer fast and quiet. Before the police, before reporters, before my board, before anyone starts circling. Wolfe sat still. You are asking me to locate a missing man? Yes, Danner said. Why me? Wolfe asked. There are agencies that locate missing men. There are policemen who locate missing men. Danner hesitated. His eyes flicked to me, then back to Wolfe. Because of last night, because you saw the cookie, because you understand the kind of pressure that can be applied without force, because someone is manipulating things around me, and I cannot tell who. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Someone is manipulating things around you, explain. Danner swallowed. Someone has been calling me after midnight. Wolfe's gaze sharpened. Threats. No words, Danner said. Just breathing. Then a small click, like metal being worried, like a lighter cap or a pen or something. It is nervous. It is intimate. It is meant to make me listen. I felt my own stomach tighten a little. Quiet calls with breathing are not sophisticated. They are personal, and personal is often dangerous. How many calls? Wolfe asked. 3, Danner said. 1 the night Mercer disappeared. 1 last night. After I left here, 1 this morning. Wolfe's tone was calm. Last night, after you left here. That indicates the caller knew you had been here. Danner's face tightened. Yes. Wolfe's eyes remained steady. Your firm partner, Mr. Pike, knew you were here. Danner flinched. Yes. Wolfe nodded slowly. So Mr. Pike is a candidate for connection, though not necessarily origin. Continue. Danner's voice became more urgent. I do not know what Mercer has done. I do not know what he has seen. I only know he is gone, and someone is using his absence to push me. Wolfe leaned back slightly. Push you to do what? Danner's hands clenched. To stop meddling. Wolfe's eyebrows rose. You have been meddling. Danner's mouth tightened. With the Rowland Foundation. That brought the room into focus, I said. How is your missing writer tied to the Rowland will? Danner's eyes flicked to me as if he resented me for being present, and yet needed me to understand. Mercer wrote Everett Rowland's biography. Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. Authorized. Yes, Danner said. Rowland cooperated. He trusted Mercer. He spoke to him privately. Mercer recorded hours of conversation. Some of it never made it into the book. Wolfe's voice was mild. Unpublished material is often more valuable than published. Danner nodded. Mercer kept notes. Audio letters, he said. Roland told him things that would make the foundation board uncomfortable. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Such as... Danner hesitated. Wolfe's tone hardened. Mr. Danner, you have come here asking for discretion and speed. If you withhold facts, you are wasting my time. I dislike wasted time. Danner swallowed. Roland talked about regrets, about his nephew, Calvin, about threats, about why he changed his will. Mercer told me there was a letter, a private letter, that proved Calvin had tried to extort Roland. Wolfe's gaze did not change, but the air in the room seemed to shift. A letter, yes, Danner said. Mercer claimed Roland gave him a copy for his files, for accuracy. He said he kept it in a safe place. I said, and now Mercer is missing, and the codicil is being treated like a live bomb. Danner nodded, yes, and the cookie, and the calls. It is all connected, it must be. Wolfe was silent for a moment. And when Wolfe is silent, he is not empty. He is arranging. Then he asked, when was Mercer last seen? Danner exhaled as if relieved to be asked something concrete. Friday night, 2 nights ago. He left his apartment on Riverside Drive at about 10. He told his assistant he was meeting someone for a drink, someone who had new information about Roland. His assistant's name is Nora Lane. She is competent. She called me at midnight, when he did not return. She did not call the police because Mercer hates police. Wolfe's voice was dry. Many men hate police until they need them. Danner nodded. I went to Mercer's apartment the next morning. His notes were there, his laptop, his coat, his passport, but his small black notebook was missing. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. A notebook. Yes, Danner said. He kept it with him always. It held his private notes, the things he did not put in typed files. If it is gone, someone took it, or he carried it and did not come back. Wolfe's gaze was steady, and the book launch is in 2 nights. Yes, Danner said. Tuesday evening. Wolfe looked at the contract again. Your financial urgency is clear. What is your personal urgency? Danner hesitated, then said quietly, Mercer is not only my writer, he is my friend. He saved my company once by writing a book that sold when nothing else did. If he is hurt, I will not forgive myself. Wolfe's expression softened by a fraction. He did not respect sentimentality, but he respected obligation. You came last night, Wolfe said. Not only because Mr. Pike told you Miss Bran was here. You came because you were already frightened. Danner's eyes flicked. Yes. Wolfe nodded once. Now you will answer one question. Danner straightened slightly, as if bracing. Wolfe's voice was calm. Who profits if the writer stays gone? The question landed like a weight on the desk. Danner stared at Wolfe. I watched his tidy cuffs and messy eyes, and saw him realize that Wolfe had just yanked the conversation away from fear and into motive, where Wolfe is strongest. Danner swallowed. Profits? Yes, Wolfe said. A missing man is inconvenient for some. It is useful. Who benefits? Danner's eyes darted, then settled. The rival publisher. I waited. Wolfe waited. Danner continued, voice tight. A company called Halcyon Press. They have been trying to poach Mercer for 2 years. They offered him more money, more freedom. He refused because he liked my editor, but they are bitter. If Mercer's launch fails, my stock drops and Halcyon looks stronger. Wolfe's expression did not change. Rivalry is possible. Continue. Danner's voice dropped. Calvin Roland. Wolfe's eyes sharpened slightly. Because Mercer possesses private material. Yes, Danner said. If Mercer has a letter proving extortion, Calvin wants it buried. If Mercer goes missing, the letter might be recovered or destroyed. Wolfe nodded. And the foundation board? Danner blinked. The board. Yes, Wolfe said. A board that prefers settlement may profit from a writer's silence. They can claim there is no reliable narrative. They can push the nephew to compromise and avoid scandal. Danner's face tightened. That is possible. Wolfe's tone remained even. And your law firm, Morrow and Pike? Dana stiffened. Why them? Wolfe lifted his chin slightly. Because they are managing the dispute, and therefore profiting from its continuation. A quick resolution reduces fees, a messy case multiplies them. Dana's mouth tightened. Mr. Pike would not. Wolfe's eyes held his. You said that last night about other things. You are frequently wrong about what men will do when money and control are at stake. Dana looked away. His messy eyes looked worse now. Wolfe continued. Who else? Dana hesitated. Mercer himself. I raised an eyebrow. That is bold. Dana's shoulders rose and fell. He could be staging a disappearance for publicity. It would sell books. Wolfe's tone was dry. It would also risk his life. Most men prefer money without death. Dana nodded. Yes, that is why I do not believe it, but I cannot exclude it. Wolfe sat back. Good. Exclusion is not yet possible. Now we proceed. Dana leaned forward, hope showing. You will take it. Wolfe's voice remained calm. Perhaps, but not on your timetable. On mine. Dana's mouth tightened. The launch is in 2 nights. Wolfe nodded. I have heard you. Now you will hear me. You have brought me a contract and a missing writer. You have also brought me a chain connecting your house, a law firm, a foundation dispute, and a cookie engineered to break in my office. That chain implies a deliberate attempt to direct me, I said. The cookie may have been bait. Wolfe glanced at me. Yes, bait, or signal. Someone wanted my attention on coats and crumbs. That suggests the same mind may want my attention elsewhere. A missing writer would be an excellent place to send me, if the true objective is the codicil or the letter. Dana's face tightened. Mercer is real, he is missing. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. I do not doubt his absence. I doubt your understanding of its purpose. Dana swallowed. Then help me understand. Wolfe looked at me. Archie, you will go to Riverside Drive and speak to Nora Lane. I will, I said. You will also obtain Mercer's schedule for Friday night, his recent contacts, and the name of the person he intended to meet, Wolfe continued. If she does not know, you will determine how she could know. You will not be charming, you will be effective. That is the second time today, I said. My charm is taking a beating. Wolfe ignored it. He turned to Dana. You will provide me with full access to your files on Mercer, contracts, correspondence, and the details of the Roland biography arrangement. You will also tell me the name of Mercer's agent. Dana nodded quickly. Ruth Calder. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. And you will inform no one that you have engaged me. Dana's mouth tightened. No one. Not Mr. Pike, Wolfe added. Dana hesitated. Wolfe's tone cooled. If you inform Mr. Pike, you will have demonstrated either foolish loyalty or complicity. Either will end my involvement. Dana swallowed. I will not tell him. Wolfe nodded once. Good. Dana looked at Wolfe, and for a moment his messy eyes steadied. Mr. Wolfe, if Mercer is hurt, Wolfe's voice was flat. Then we will discover who hurt him. But you will recall my question. Who profits if he stays gone? That is where we will begin. Dana stood there, hands still visible, as if he feared his own pockets now. He glanced at the contract, as if it were no longer a document, but a threat. Then he looked at Wolfe again. I did not plan the cookie, he said quietly. I did not plan any of this. Wolfe regarded him. I will decide what you planned when I know what you have done. Dana flinched, nodded, and turned to leave. When he was gone, I looked at Wolfe. We are now juggling a missing writer, a contested will, a nervous cookie, and a coat rack. Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. You make it sound absurd. It is absurd, I said. It is also New York. Wolfe's mouth tightened. New York is not absurd, it is merely unprincipled. That is easier to manage. He leaned back, fingertips together, and his gaze went distant, toward whatever internal board he uses to arrange motives. "Archie," he said, "this case will not be solved by running. It will be solved by determining what the manipulation is meant to accomplish." Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Control of documents, of narrative, of time. A cookie that breaks on cue. A publisher who arrives on cue. A writer who vanishes on cue. These are not random. Someone is setting scenes. I stared at him. "And we are actors." Wolfe's voice was calm. "We are critics. We will review the performance and name the playwright." He paused, then added, almost casually, "Now go, speak to Nora Lane, and Archie, do not allow your impatience to substitute for observation." "I will try," I said, "but if I get drenched again, I will substitute a lawsuit." Wolfe did not smile. He rarely does when he is interested. I left the office and headed for the door, and as I did, I had the odd thought that the broken heart cookie had done its job. It had not been eaten. It had not been enjoyed. It had been used. Now, a man was missing. A contract lay like a body tag on Wolfe's desk, and the rain outside was still doing what it always does in this town, washing nothing clean while the dirty work moved indoors. Chapter 4. The apartment that looked too clean, Riverside Drive, has always struck me as the part of Manhattan that tries to be calm by staring at water. It is a good trick. The river keeps moving and makes you think the city might be capable of the same. That afternoon, the sky was still low and wet. The Hudson was the color of old pewter, and the wind had a damp edge that slid under your collar with practiced intimacy. Clay Mercer lived in one of those buildings that have a doorman and a quiet lobby and an air of money that has learned to whisper. Nora Lane met me there, not in the lobby, but in the elevator vestibule on the 9th floor, as if she did not trust walls to keep secrets. She was in her late 20s, sharp-faced, with hair pinned back in the efficient style of a woman who has decided her time is worth money. She wore a plain coat and carried a leather folder. Her eyes were alert, not fearful, and that made her more believable. Fear often turns to performance. Alertness tends to be real. "Mr. Goodwin," she said, and she did not offer her hand. Her hands were full of paper and tension. "That's me," I said. "I work for Nero Wolfe. I assume you know who he is." "I know," she replied. "Mr. Danner called him. Clay would hate that." "Clay is currently missing," I said. "He will hate many things later. Right now we need facts." Her mouth tightened. She unlocked Mercer's apartment door with a key that looked too new, as if she had been issued it for this crisis. Then she stepped aside and let me in, watching me as if I might rearrange the furniture by accident. The apartment was the kind of neat that does not happen naturally. It was not simply tidy. It was staged. Books were aligned on shelves by height and color. A throw blanket was folded with sharp corners. A glass on the coffee table was empty and placed precisely on a coaster. The kitchen counter was clear except for a single bowl of fruit that looked as if it had been arranged by someone who had studied still life painting. I have been in tidy apartments and messy ones. This was neither. It was too clean, like someone had taken the mess of living and wiped it away, leaving a photograph of a life instead of the life itself. Nora watched me take it in. "It was not like this," she said. "Good," I replied. "That means you noticed, and you are not the type who misses things," she swallowed. "After he disappeared. I came here. I found the door locked. I used my key. His desk was open. Papers were scattered. There were coffee cups in the sink. It looked like Clay. He lived like a man who thinks the mess is proof he is working." "And now," I said, "it looks like a showroom." Nora nodded. 2 days ago, it was not. I walked deeper into the apartment, careful not to touch. Touching is a habit, and habits are how people destroy evidence. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, but not enough to be obvious. It was the kind of smell you get when someone cleans quickly and wants the smell to disappear before it can be associated with cleaning. Then I saw it. On the kitchen counter, near the edge where the light from the window fell, sat a bakery box. The lid was open, and the box smelled sweet and wrong. Sweet, because sugar is honest about being sugar, Wrong because the sweetness had a faint edge of something old, as if the sugar had been waiting. Inside the box lay half of a heart-shaped cookie. The half was snapped clean, just like the one that had cracked on Wolfe's desk. The icing was bright, almost red, not the soft pink of the earlier cookie, with the same shape and the same neat border style. The break line was sharp and deliberate. The other half was missing, like an alibi that had run off. I leaned in without touching and stared at it. Nora's voice was tight. That was not here before. Not here when? I asked. Not when I came in Saturday morning, she said. I was here for 2 hours. I looked through drawers. I called his phone. I checked everything. I would have seen that. I nodded. So someone came in after. She swallowed. Yes. I looked around for crumbs. There were none on the counter, none on the floor, none on the stovetop, none along the box edges. Not a single stray bit of sugar in sight. A cookie snapped in half does not politely contain its own debris. It makes crumbs. Crumbs travel, unless someone cleans. My gaze went to the sink. There, on the metal near the basin, was a smear of red icing, a small streak, as if a finger had brushed it and then been wiped away hastily. It was the only mess in the whole kitchen, and it looked like a mistake, the kind a careful person makes when trying to be too careful. I pointed. That. Nora leaned closer, eyes widening. That is icing. Yes, I said, and it is the only thing in this apartment that looks like a human being made it by accident. She swallowed. Someone cleaned everything and missed that. Or, I said, they cleaned everything and left that on purpose. Nora's eyes narrowed. Why would they leave a smear? Because they want a message, I said, and messages need a signature. I looked back at the cookie half. It sat in the box like a clue arranged for someone to find. It was not dessert. It was theater, I said, mostly to myself. That's not dessert. That's a signal flare with sprinkles. Nora gave me a tight look. What does it signal? I did not answer immediately. I walked slowly around the room, letting my eyes do the work. The neatness was too perfect. It had been done in a hurry, but done by someone who wanted it to look effortless. The trash can had a fresh liner. The bathroom door was closed, and when I opened it, the towels were folded like a hotel. Mercer did not strike me as a hotel towel man. What is missing? I asked. Nora blinked. Missing? Yes, I said. A staged apartment tells you what someone wants you to see. A missing object tells you what they are afraid of. Nora hesitated, then walked to a bookshelf and pointed. That space. Clay kept a small black notebook there. It is gone. Dana mentioned it, I said. Nora nodded. Also his recorder. He used a small handheld recorder. It is not in his desk. It is not in his travel bag. It is gone. That, I said, is a better motive than a cookie. Nora's mouth tightened. He recorded interviews with Everett Rowland, private ones. And someone wants those recordings, I said. Nora's voice dropped. And someone wants the letter he talked about. I turned to her. He talked about a letter. She hesitated. He told me there was a letter from Calvin Rowland, a letter that proved threats. He said he kept a copy. Where? I asked. Nora's eyes flicked away. He did not say. I nodded. Writers, they guard their secrets like children guard candy. She swallowed. He said if anything happened to him, I should give the notebook to Dana. And now the notebook is gone, I said, and Dana is getting midnight breathing calls. Nora's face tightened. Yes. I returned to the kitchen and studied the cookie half again. The icing was red. The earlier cookie had been pink. That difference mattered. Pink is suggestion. Red is insistence. I looked at Nora. Did Clay have a sweetheart? Nora blinked, then frowned. Not that I know. He had admirers. He did not have commitments. I nodded. Then the heart is not romance. It is symbol. Nora's eyes narrowed. What symbol? A broken heart, I said. A warning. A reminder that what is whole can be snapped clean. Also a pointer because someone likes pointers. I bent closer to the wax paper lining the box. I did not touch, but I could see faint sugar dust near one corner. Not crumbs, just a pale powder. It reminded me of the icing dust in Dana's pocket. I said, "Same trick. Fine dust floats. It travels. It clings to fabric. It marks people." Nora stared. "Marks them for what?" I straightened and looked around the apartment again. The neatness was not only for show, it was also for concealment. When you remove clutter, you remove hiding places. That sounds helpful, but it also removes evidence of intrusion. A messy room reveals disturbance. A clean room can be made to look undisturbed. Summonon wanted this to look calm, I said. Not because they like calm, but because they want you to doubt your memory. You said there were cups in the sink Saturday morning. Now the sink is spotless, except for that smear. You are supposed to think maybe you imagined the cups, maybe you imagined the scattered papers, maybe Clay was always neat. Nora's jaw tightened. He was not. That is good, I said. Hold on to it because the goal of this kind of manipulation is not just to hide a crime, it is to make witnesses uncertain. Nora's eyes widened slightly, like gaslighting. I frowned, like lying with style. She almost smiled, then did not. So what do? We do what Wolfe would do, I said. We find who has access and who benefits, who can enter a building like this without raising alarms. Nora's voice was tight. The doorman logs visitors. That helps, I said, unless someone came in wearing authority. Her eyes narrowed. Authority. Maintenance, I said. Security, police. A lawyer, a man with a clipboard and a calm voice. Nora swallowed. Or someone with a key. Yes, I said. Who besides you has a key? Nora hesitated. Clay's super building management. The doorman might have an emergency key. Names, I said. She gave them, and I filed them away. Then I looked at the bakery box again. This, I said, is not here by accident. It is placed where you and I would find it. It is the kind of clue someone leaves when they want you to know they have been here. Nora's face tightened. Why would they want that? Because they want fear, I said. Fear makes people act. Dana wants Wolfe to act fast and quiet. You want Mercer found. Someone else wants you both frantic and obedient. Nora stared. Obedient to what? To silence, I said. To yielding whatever document or recording they want, without making noise. The cookie says, we can break things cleanly. We can enter your home. We can leave a message and still make it look like nothing happened. Nora's voice shook with anger now. They will not win. That is a nice sentiment, I said. Wolfe prefers logic. I took out my notebook and began writing. Tell me exactly when you last saw Mercer. She told me again, and this time she gave more detail. The meeting Mercer had mentioned. The name he had refused to say, the place he had said, a bar on the Upper West Side, the time, the fact that he had left without his notebook, but with his wallet and keys. The fact that he had been cheerful, which meant he believed the meeting would benefit him. Then I asked, who knew he was meeting someone? Nora hesitated. Only me, and maybe his agent, Ruth Calder. He had spoken to her earlier. I nodded. And the publisher, Dana. Yes, she said. I made a note. Few people knew, but more people could have guessed. Writers talk in hints, I said. Now, the cookie, did Mercer ever mention cookies? Nora blinked. Number. Did he ever mention a bakery on 9th Avenue? I asked. No, she said. I nodded. Then the cookie is not his habit. It is someone else's motif. Someone has decided hearts are a good way to threaten people who handle paper. Nora's eyes narrowed. Like Miss Bran. Yes, I said. This is the second heart cookie. Same clean snap. Same theatrical timing. Same idea of direction. The first cookie pointed to a coat rack. This one points to what? Nora stared at the half cookie. It points to the missing half. Exactly, I said. The missing half is somewhere, or someone has it. The missing half is a token. If you want the other half, you do what you are told." Nora's face went pale. "You think Mercer is being held and the other half is with him?" I did not like the thought, but I did not dismiss it. It is possible. But it is also possible the other half is in someone's pocket, like icing dust, marking them as involved. Nora swallowed. "How do we find it?" I looked at the smear of icing near the sink. "We find the person who touched it. That smear is a fingerprint in sugar. Someone's glove or finger made it. If they were careful enough to clean everything else, they were careful enough to leave almost nothing. Almost nothing is still something." Nora stared. "Can you test it?" "Not here," I said. "But I can photograph it, and I can ask the building staff who was here after you. And I can take the cookie half with me, as evidence if the police get involved." Nora's jaw tightened. "Danner does not want police." "Danner does not get to choose reality," I said. "He can choose how long he pretends." I took a photo of the smear and of the cookie half, careful not to touch. Then I closed the box lid gently, leaving it where it was. Moving it would destroy the staging, and staging is itself evidence. Nora watched me. "You are leaving it." "Yes," I said, "because whoever staged it may come back to check whether we noticed. If it disappears, we know we are being observed. If it stays, we know the staging was meant for a broader audience." Nora's eyes narrowed. "That sounds risky." "So is a missing man," I said. I walked to the door. "Now we go downstairs and talk to the doorman." Nora nodded, shoulders stiff. She looked back at the apartment as if she hated its neatness. As we left, I glanced once more at the bakery box. Lid open, half heart inside. The apartment was staged for a photo that never got taken, and yet the cookie was there like a prop, too perfect to be real. It was not dessert. It was a signal, and somebody had cleaned the crime but forgotten the message. Chapter 5. The overcoat nobody claimed by the time I got back to West 35th Street. My shoes had adopted the Hudson, and my coat had adopted the weather. The taxi dropped me in front of the brownstone, and the rain, which had been polite for 10 minutes, took advantage of my arrival to renew its friendship with my collar. Inside, the house was dry, warm, and smug about it. Fritz met me in the hall with a look that was half sympathy and half disapproval, the kind a competent man gives to a man who continues to treat the city like it can be reasoned with on the sidewalk. "You are wet again, Archie," he said. "It is becoming a habit," I told him. "If you see me begin to enjoy it, call a doctor." He took my coat, and I could tell by the way he handled it that he had already been instructed to treat fabric like evidence instead of laundry. Fritz can do anything with the same calm hands, including remove a roast from the oven and remove a gun from a client. "Mr. Wolfe is in the office," Fritz said. "He asked that you come at once." "Of course he did," I said. "The orchids are probably resting, and now he needs a substitute for trouble." Fritz did not smile, but his eyes did, just a little. I went into the office and found Wolfe behind his desk with the posture of a man who has been waiting not for my arrival but for my information. He had his reading glasses on, not because he needed them for reading, but because he needed them for inspection. On the desk, laid out with the neatness of an autopsy, were objects that did not belong there in a polite universe. Coates Wolfe had lined them up the way a cautious man lines up strangers in a hallway. There was Mark Danner's expensive overcoat, the one with tidy cuffs and messy implications. There was a rain, dark delivery jacket, the kind of jacket worn by messengers and boys who carry boxes and do not ask questions. There was Lila Brand's raincoat, damp in places, ordinary in its fabric, and extraordinary in its roll. And there was my own coat, which had been hung on the rack, and apparently indicted as an accessory. Wolfe looked up as I entered. "You have returned," he said. "Yes," I replied, "and I have brought a second heart cookie into your life, though not physically because I have decided this case has enough sugar already." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Speak." I sat because my legs were tired, and Wolfe does not care about tired legs, but he does care about efficiency. I gave him the facts in order, the way he prefers. "Mercer's apartment is too clean," I said, staged lemon cleaner smell. "Books are lined. Towels folded like a hotel. There is a bakery box on the counter, lid open. Inside is half a heart-shaped cookie, snapped clean. The other half is missing. There is a smear of red icing near the sink. No crumbs anywhere else. Someone cleaned everything, and either missed the smear or left it as a signature. Wolfe listened without moving, which is his way of moving internally. Nora Lane, I continued, says the box was not there Saturday morning when she first entered after Mercer vanished. She says Mercer's black notebook is missing and a small recorder is missing. Mercer had private material on Everett Rowland. She thinks Mercer had a letter proving Calvin Rowland threatened Rowland. Mercer was meeting someone Friday night to get new information. Nora does not know who. She knows the bar and the time. Wolfe's eyes remained steady. And you spoke to the building staff? Not yet, I admitted. I was about to, but I decided the apartment itself was shouting louder than the doorman. I will go back if you want me to. Also, the doorman will talk more freely if we decide whether we are keeping this quiet or whether we are involving the police. Quiet makes doorman cautious. Wolfe grunted. You have done enough for one excursion. Sit. I was already sitting, but Wolfe likes to issue commands even when they have been obeyed. It makes him feel anchored in a world that insists on drifting. He gestured with one thick finger toward the coats on his desk. These, he said, are the next facts. I stared. You have turned your desk into a tailor's nightmare. I have turned it into an inventory, Wolfe corrected. A coat is a portable room. Men conceal themselves in coats. Men conceal objects in coats. Men conceal intentions in coats, therefore coats merit attention. I could not argue with that, though I wanted to, because if I argued, I would have to admit he was right. Where did the delivery jacket come from? I asked. Wolfe's eyes flicked to the jacket. From the messenger service on 9th Avenue. Archie, you spoke with a bakery clerk last night. Yes, I said. He lied badly, and in his bad lying, Wolfe said, you mentioned the messenger service that delivered to Miss Bran. I blinked. I did not mention it to you, I do not think. Wolfe's eyes hardened. You did, Archie. You are careless with your own memory when you are wet. You said a boy delivered the cookie and required a signature that indicates a messenger service, not a bakery delivery. Therefore I had Saul Panzer visit the service this morning. He said it casually, as if Saul were a domestic appliance. Saul Panzer is a domestic appliance. In Wolfe's world, you push a button and he appears competent, quiet, and expensive. Saul had arrived, Wolfe explained, and spoken to the dispatcher. The dispatcher had produced the jacket worn by the boy who delivered to Morrow and Pike, because the boy had returned and hung it in the back room. Wolfe had the dispatcher send it over, and Fritz had received it like a package from the universe. Wolfe had also had Dana's coat brought from the outer office, and Lila's raincoat borrowed, and my own coat confiscated, which was a personal insult. I have checked Dana's coat, Wolfe said. It remains dirty with sugar, consistent with the icing dust you collected last night. The delivery jacket is dirty with rain and street dust. Appropriate Miss Bran's coat is damp and ordinary. Your coat is disgraceful. My coat is innocent, I protested. It is merely underpaid. Wolfe ignored that. But there is an additional coat. He turned his eyes to the fourth one on the desk, the one I had not recognized because it did not belong to our household. It was a dark overcoat, plain, heavy, and well-made, but without the show of money that Dana's coat carried. It looked like the coat of a man who prefers not to be remembered. Its buttons were simple. Its lining was dark. Its pockets were deep. It sat among the others like a stranger at a family table. I leaned forward. Where did that come from? Wolfe's voice was calm. It was hanging on the hall rack when Fritz went to retrieve the mail at noon. I blinked. That rack is in our hall. Coats do not appear there by magic. No, Wolfe agreed. They appear there by hands. Hands that were permitted into the house, or hands that entered without permission. Neither option is comforting. I said, Fritz would have noticed a stranger coming in. Of course, Wolfe said. Therefore it did not enter by the front door when Fritz was present. It may have entered when you admitted Mr. Dana and were occupied. It may have entered when you escorted Miss Brown. It may have been placed deliberately in the hall during a moment of distraction. I frowned. We had no moment of distraction. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Archie, you have a persistent talent for believing your attention is constant. It is not. It is merely better than average. That was his way of insulting me without raising his voice. It worked. I studied the dark overcoat. No one claimed it. Correct, Wolfe said. Fritz asked you. You denied it. I asked you. You denied it. I asked Miss Brand by telephone. She denied it. I asked Mr. Danner when he telephoned an hour ago. He denied it. You asked Danner, I said. Yes, Wolfe replied. He called to inquire whether you had learned anything about Mercer. He is impatient. I used his impatience to obtain a denial. He denied knowledge of this coat with sufficient speed to make it plausible. That does not make it true. I leaned back. So we have an unclaimed coat that appeared in our hall, and it is now sitting on Wolfe's desk like a confession. Wolfe nodded slowly. We will see whether it is a confession or a provocation. Provocation, I repeated. Yes, Wolfe said. A coat left on purpose is a hand still trying to be seen. I stared at him. That sounds like you. It is accurate, Wolfe said, and then he pointed at the cuff of the dark overcoat. Archie, observe. I leaned in. On the cuff, near the edge where fabric folds and hides lint, there was a faint thread stuck to it. It was thin and red, almost pink, like a hair from a cheap scarf. It caught the light only when you angled it. Wolfe's eyes were steady. Now, the inner seam. He indicated the inner seam near the pocket. I reached out, then stopped, because Wolfe's desk is a sacred surface, and I did not want to be accused of contaminating an altar. Wolfe nodded. You may touch, but with care. I ran my fingers lightly along the seam. My fingertips came away with a faint dust, pale, almost invisible. I held my fingers under the lamp. Icing dust, I said. Wolfe nodded once, as if pleased I could still recognize sugar. It is not abundant, Wolfe said, but it is present, and it is present where a hand might have brushed something into the seam while placing or removing an object. I stared at the cuff thread again. That thread is red, yes, Wolfe said. And you reported a red icing smear in Mercer's kitchen. Bright red, I agreed. Wolfe's voice remained calm. You photographed it. Yes. Then the thread on this cuff may be consistent with the dye in that icing, Wolfe said. I frowned. Thread, dye, and icing dye. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Cheap dye is cheap dye. It has a certain crude intensity. It stains fabric and clings. A careful man may clean crumbs but miss a thread. A nervous hand may wipe a sink and miss a smear. The errors are related. I said, so you think this coat was in Mercer's kitchen? I think it is possible, Wolfe corrected. But we do not decide yet. We confirm. He turned his head slightly. Fritz. Fritz appeared in the doorway, as if he had been waiting. Fritz has a skill for appearing at the exact moment. Wolfe wants him. I have often wondered whether Fritz listens at keyholes. Then I remember Fritz's face and decide he would rather die than do anything vulgar. Yes, sir, Fritz said. Bring the small bottle, Wolfe instructed. The one used for orchid nutrient, the clear glass. Fritz nodded and left, returning within a minute with a small bottle and a clean saucer. Wolfe gestured for him to set them down. What are we doing? I asked. Wolfe's eyes flicked to me. We are testing. We will take a minute trace of the red thread's dye using a damp swab. Then we will compare it to the smear photograph, and later, if possible, to the icing itself in Mercer's apartment. I blinked. You want me to go back and scrape icing? Wolfe's mouth tightened. Not scrape. Collect. There is a difference, and yes, but not yet. Fritz, at Wolfe's direction, dampened a tiny bit of clean cotton with the clear liquid. Wolfe did not touch it. He indicated, and Fritz, with the steady hands of a man who has never spilled sauce, dabbed the cotton lightly against the red thread. A faint blush transferred to the cotton. Wolfe nodded. There. I leaned in. It is red. It is more than red, Wolfe said. It is crude. It is the sort of dye used to make cheap icing vivid, not the refined tint used in quality confectionery. Meaning, I said. Not the fancy bakery. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Or not a fancy baker's preference. But recall, the first cookie sent to Miss Bran was pink. The cookie half in Mercer's apartment was red. That suggests two sources or one source capable of variation. A bakery can do both. A cheaper producer can do both. The question is, why the shift? I said. Pink to lure, red to warn. Wolfe's eyes held mine for a moment, and I could tell he approved, which always makes me suspicious of myself. Possibly. Or pink for Miss Bran, red for Mercer. Different targets, different emphasis. I leaned back and stared at the overcoat again. So who wore it? Wolfe's voice was steady. Someone who entered my house. Someone who entered Mercer's apartment. Or someone who wants us to think he did. That is comforting, I said. Either way, we have a stranger in our hall. Wolfe's expression remained calm. Not necessarily. A coat can be carried by anyone. It can be placed by anyone. The wearer is not the only relevant person, but it is a start. I looked at the other coats. Dana's coat, messenger jacket, Lila's raincoat. My own, the odd overcoat, sat among them like the one guest who has not been introduced. You treated coats like suspects, I said. Wolfe nodded. Yes, they are silent, but they carry residue. Residue is honest, I said. You could apply that philosophy to humans and save time. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Humans are rarely honest, Archie. That is why they require interrogation. He shifted slightly in his chair. Now, let us consider why an overcoat would be left in my hall. To frame someone, I suggested. To bait you. To show you they can enter. All plausible, Wolfe said, but insufficient. We require motive. I frowned. Motive for leaving a coat. Exactly, Wolfe said. Most men do not leave good overcoats behind. They are expensive. They are protective. If left, either it is a sacrifice for a purpose, or it is left because it was inconvenient to carry at the moment. Inconvenient, I repeated. Wolfe nodded. Imagine a man carrying an object in both hands, needing to move quickly. He removes his coat, leaving it behind, perhaps intending to retrieve it later. Or perhaps he has no intention of returning, and the coat is a disposable disguise. I stared. A disguise. Wolfe's eyes were steady. Yes, a coat is identity in a public place. Remove it, and you alter your outline. A man may leave a coat behind if he intends to depart looking like someone else. I thought of Penn Station in our previous case, and shadows and coats, and the way people vanish. I did not mention it. Wolfe dislikes being reminded that the world repeats itself. I said, so someone came into our hall wearing that coat, then left without it looking different. Possible, Wolfe agreed. Or someone placed it intentionally so we would notice sugar and red dye and connect it to Mercer's apartment. I leaned forward. Boss, do you think Mercer is alive? Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. That is not the question. It is to me, I said. A missing man is not a contract problem. It is a human problem. Wolfe's expression softened by a fraction. You are correct. It is, but we do not have enough to decide his condition. We decide what the scheme requires. If the scheme requires Mercer silent but alive, he may be alive. If it requires him removed, he may be dead. We will not guess. We will infer from behavior. Like the midnight breathing calls, I said. Yes, Wolfe replied. Those calls are a mechanism of pressure. Pressure implies the target can still act. If Mercer were dead and the objective were purely to retrieve his materials, the pressure on Dana would be unnecessary unless Dana possesses something else. Therefore, we must learn what Dana possesses. I said, he possesses Mercer's contract and his schedule and his own nervous system. Wolfe ignored my humor. He may also possess knowledge, or copies, or he may believe he does. Wolfe leaned back slightly, eyes half closed. Now, Archie, We return to the heart cookie, I groaned. Not again. Yes, again, Wolfe said. 2 hearts, 2 halves, the first engineered to break on my desk, pointing to a coat rack. The second staged in Mercer's apartment, half missing. These are not random pastries. They are signals. The message is consistent. Something is broken, something is missing, and coats are involved. I stared at the overcoat. So the missing half could be in a coat. Precisely, Wolfe said. Or the missing half is metaphorical. It indicates a missing piece of evidence, a missing man, a missing page, a missing letter. I nodded slowly. A missing notebook and recorder. Yes, Wolfe said. He looked at the coats again. Now, consider the overcoat's icing dust. It indicates contact with a cookie or with someone who handled a cookie. The red thread indicates contact with red icing or with an environment where red icing was smeared. Your report from Mercer's kitchen includes a smear, so the overcoat ties the scenes, I said. It suggests a tie, Wolfe corrected. We must confirm. I pointed at the messenger jacket. What about that? Any icing? Wolfe shook his head slightly. No icing, rain, street dust, ordinary lint. The boy did not handle the cookie. He handled the box. The icing dust was inside Dana's pocket. That indicates Dana handled the cookie or was present when it was handled. He admitted he ordered it, touched it, and delivered it to the messenger service. That establishes him as the initial carrier. And now he is getting breathing calls, I said. Yes, Wolfe said. He tapped a thick finger on the desk. Therefore, someone has used Dana as a tool, and now that tool is being pressured. The overcoat suggests another tool, or another hand. I leaned back. Who would leave a coat in Wolfe's hall? That takes nerve. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Not nerve, confidence, or desperation, I said. Or they want to be seen. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. The coat left on purpose is a hand still trying to be seen. The phrase sat in the room like a damp coat itself. It made me uncomfortable because it meant the person behind this was not trying to hide completely. He was trying to control what we saw, I asked. Do you think this is Mr. Pike? Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Mr. Pike is a candidate, but his method so far is indirect. He sent Dana to retrieve the codicil. He did not send a cookie directly, at least not openly. But a partner in a law firm may hire others. He may also have relationships with men who can enter buildings without notice. Like building management, I said, or private security. Wolfe nodded slightly. Yes, I thought of Nora Lane telling me the doorman logs visitors. Unless someone arrives wearing authority, I said. The overcoat looks like authority. Not flashy, not poor, the kind of coat a building supervisor might wear. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Good, that is plausible. It is also testable. We will speak to the building staff. You will do that, Archie. I sighed. Back to Riverside Drive. Yes, Wolfe said. You will obtain the visitor log for Saturday and Sunday. You will identify who accessed Mercer's apartment. You will also inquire whether any man matching this coat's general size and style was seen. Do not show the coat, you will describe. I nodded. And the red icing. Wolfe nodded. You will, if possible, obtain a sample of the smear carefully, and a sample of the cookie half if the box remains. You will do so with Nora Lane present as witness. If the building management objects, you will inform them that objections will be interpreted as obstruction. That should charm them, I said. Wolfe's eyes flicked to me. Charm is irrelevant. I could have told him that was the 3rd time today, he continued. Additionally, you will visit the bakery on 9th Avenue again, and this time you will not accept vague answers. You will learn whether they have made red heart cookies recently, and for whom. The red dye suggests a cheaper product, but do not assume. Confirm. I nodded. Wolfe looked at the overcoat again. We will also determine how this coat entered my hall. I frowned. How we were here. Fritz was here. The door was locked. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. The front door was locked, but the house has other entrances. I stared. Basement. Wolfe nodded. Yes, the area door. Fritz uses it occasionally for deliveries. It has a lock. A lock can be picked. A lock can also be left imperfectly engaged by a tired man returning in rain. I opened my mouth to protest on Fritz's behalf, then stopped. Fritz is capable, but nobody is perfect, and Wolfe enjoys proving that. Wolfe added, I have asked Fritz. He believes the lock was properly engaged. I believe Fritz, but I also believe in the possibility of skill. Therefore, we must consider that someone entered without Fritz's knowledge and left the coat as a message. A message to Wolfe, I said. A message to me, Wolfe agreed. Or to you. The crumb line pointed to the coat rack when you were in the hall. You were the one who would see it first. A man who knows my habits knows you are the one who touches coats. I scowled. So they are trying to play my hands. Wolfe nodded. Yes, that should annoy you. Use the annoyance. At that moment, the doorbell rang. He rose automatically, then paused because Wolfe's eyes had narrowed. Wolfe had anticipated a second interruption. Archie, he said, before you answer, look through the front window. Observe who stands there. I did. On the stoop stood a man in a dark cap and plain coat, holding a small package. He looked like any delivery man, except he stood too still, as if aware of the house watching him. I reported, Delivery man, package. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Bring it. I opened the door. The man handed me the package without speaking. It was small, wrapped in brown paper, tied with string, no return address. Who is it from? I asked. He shrugged. No name, paid in cash. I took it, closed the door, and returned to the office. Wolfe watched the package as if it might be a snake. Place it on the desk, he said. I did. Wolfe did not touch it. He nodded toward the letter opener. Archie, he said. I used the letter opener to cut the string and paper carefully. Inside was a small envelope. Inside that was a single object wrapped in wax paper. I unfolded the wax paper. It was half of a heart-shaped cookie, red icing clean, snap, sharp, break line, the missing half from Mercer's kitchen, or a deliberate imitation made to resemble it. This half had no crumbs around it. Whoever packaged it had cleaned it like a relic. My stomach tightened. Wolfe's eyes became very still. He did not speak for a long moment. Then he said, quietly, the hand persists. I looked at him. They delivered the missing half to your desk. Yes, Wolfe said. They are trying to direct us. They are also trying to demonstrate access. Access to Mercer's apartment. Access to my house. Access to narrative. I stared at the cookie half. That is not dessert. Wolfe's eyes flicked to me. Number, it is a permit. I frowned. A permit. Wolfe's voice was calm. A permission slip. It says, you may proceed only as we allow, and we will show you what we wish you to see. I said, I do not like being issued permits. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Nor do I. He leaned forward slightly, finally allowing his fingers to hover near the wax paper without touching the icing. Observe the break. I leaned in. The snap was clean and precise, like the earlier ones. Wolfe nodded. The break lines are consistent. This is not a casual cookie. It is engineered to snap cleanly, to create halves that can be used as tokens, I said. So now the token is here, and the overcoat is here, and Mercer is not. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Correct, and the person behind this believes he can manage our attention by staging objects. He believes he can use sugar and cloth to control what we infer. I stared at him. Can he? Wolfe's voice turned colder. Number, he sat back. And when Wolfe sits back with that expression, it means he has reached the point where he is no longer merely analyzing. He is preparing to act. Archie, he said, you will do 3 things today. You will return to Mercer's building and obtain the logs and a sample. You will go to the bakery and identify the source of red icing. You will also locate Mr. Pike. I blinked. Locate him. Yes, Wolfe said. Not call him. Locate him. Determine where he is, whom he meets, and whether he receives deliveries that arrive without names. Saul could do that, I said. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Saul will assist. You will observe. This is your case as much as mine because the hand is trying to play you. I felt my annoyance flare, and it was not entirely unpleasant. Wolfe was right. I do not mind being used by Wolfe. I mind being used by strangers. Wolfe looked at the unclaimed overcoat again, then at the cookie half. A coat left on purpose, he said, is a hand still trying to be seen, and a cookie half delivered to my desk is the same hand waving. I said, waving at you. Waving at control, Wolfe corrected. It thinks it controls time movement and consent. It thinks it can keep us in a loop of almost. I nodded slowly. Not if you revoke the permit. Wolfe's eyes fixed on me. Exactly. He gestured toward the cookie half. Place it in a tin, seal it, label it. Fritz will do that. It is evidence now, and it will remain intact. I turned to the doorway. Fritz. Fritz appeared, calm, as if heart cookies were a daily problem. Yes, Archie. Tin, seal, label, I said. Do not eat it. Fritz's eyes softened. I will not eat it. Wolfe glanced at me. Archie, go, and this time, do not bring rain back into my office. Bring facts. I rose. Facts I can do. Weather control is not in my contract. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Your contract is whatever I say it is. I left the office with the feeling that the house had shifted from warm refuge to staging ground. Upstairs, the orchids were still under their lights, indifferent. In the kitchen, Fritz would be handling cookie evidence with the same care he gives to pastry that deserves it, which this did not. In the hall, the coat rack stood empty now. Wolfe had removed every coat and laid them out like suspects. The stranger's overcoat had been unmasked, and sugar had betrayed it. The scheme had tried to speak in crumbs and cloth. Now Wolfe was listening, and when Wolfe listens, time stops granting permission to anyone else. Chapter 6, The Breather on the Line. If you want to catch a fish, you do not throw your hook into the bathtub and complain that nothing bites. You put it where the fish already are and you wait. That is the part most people dislike. Waiting feels like doing nothing, and in New York doing nothing is treated as a misdemeanor. Wolfe, of course, has made a career of waiting. He calls it thinking, and he charges for it. By late afternoon, I had done my rounds and come back to the brownstone with more damp cuffs and less patience. The doorman at Mercer's building had been polite in the way a man is polite when he does not want trouble, and the logbook had been less helpful than it should have been. It showed building management entries, a maintenance visit, and a delivery, but the handwriting was sloppy, and the times had gaps that looked like deliberate vagueness. The bakery on 9th Avenue had confirmed they make red icing for certain specialty orders. But the clerk's memory became fog whenever I asked for names, and Mr. Pike, when I had tried to locate him through Morrow and Pike's office, had been in conference, which is lawyer language for not where you can reach him. Wolfe listened to my report without showing irritation. Wolfe saves irritation for moments when it can serve him. When he finished taking in the facts, he leaned back, steepled his fingers, and said, "We will make the caller reveal himself." "Caller," I said. "Breather." "Breather," Wolfe agreed. "A man who uses silence and a small click to apply pressure, that is not courage, that is dependency. He relies on ritual. Rituals can be trapped." I had been thinking along similar lines, which made me uneasy because when I think along similar lines to Wolfe, it usually means I am about to do the legwork for it. "What is the trap?" I asked. Wolfe's eyes flicked to the telephone. "We invite him to repeat his performance under conditions we control." "That means we need Dana," I said. "Yes," Wolfe replied. "And you will bring him." I called Dana and asked him to come at once. He arrived within 20 minutes, which told me his nerves were already doing most of his driving. He came in with his coat buttoned, hat in hand, and his messy eyes looking for threats that were not there. Wolfe received him in the office with his usual lack of hospitality. Wolfe believes hospitality encourages people to linger, and lingering is inefficient. "Mr. Danner," Wolfe said, "you will assist us." Danner swallowed. "Anything." Wolfe nodded. "Good. You have received anonymous calls after midnight." "Yes," Danner said. 3. You said the caller spoke no words," Wolfe continued. "Only breathing and a small click." Danner nodded. Wolfe leaned forward slightly. "You will now call the number from which you received those calls." Danner blinked. "Now?" "Yes," Wolfe said. "In daylight." Danner's mouth tightened. "He will not answer." Wolfe's voice was calm, perhaps, but the purpose is not to reach him. The purpose is to inform him that you are reaching. Shadows hear more than they speak. That was Wolfe's way of saying we would ring the bell and see who flinched. I said, "You still have the number." Danner hesitated, then pulled out a small notebook and opened it. His hands trembled slightly. "Yes," he said. "I wrote it down." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Show it." Danner handed the notebook across the desk. Wolfe looked at the number without touching the paper, then nodded to me. "Memorize it," Wolfe said. I did. It was a local exchange, not a payphone prefix. That was important. Breath calls are often payphones. A local exchange suggested a line with a home base, or at least a private office, that was either careless or confident. Wolfe returned the notebook. "Call it," he said. Danner swallowed and lifted the receiver from Wolfe's desk phone. He dialed, slowly, as if each digit could bite him. The ringing sounded ordinary, which was almost insulting. It is hard to believe in menace when a phone rings like any other phone. There was no answer. It rang, then rang again, then went to a blank silence. No operator, no voice, just dead air. Danner lowered the receiver slightly. Nothing. Wolfe's tone remained calm. "Of course. But now whoever controls that line knows you have called. That is the hook." Danner stared. "Hook," I said. "Wolfe is going fishing with your nerves as bait." Wolfe ignored me. "Now we wait." Danner looked alarmed. "Wait for what?" "For the response," Wolfe replied. "A man who uses ritual does not tolerate disruption. If he calls you to apply pressure, and you call him first, he must restore the ritual. He must prove he is still the one issuing permits." Danner's cheeks flushed. "Permits?" Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Do not be dense. The caller uses time and silence to control you. That is permission by intimidation." Danner sat stiff on the edge of the red leather chair. He looked as if the chair might accuse him too. I stayed by my desk, outwardly relaxed, inwardly attentive. A phone trap is not complicated. It is just quiet. That is what makes it hard for New Yorkers. Silence is a neighborhood they avoid. Wolfe sat behind his desk like a judge, hands folded. His eyes were half closed, not because he was sleepy, but because he was listening with more than ears. Wolfe listens for patterns. Patterns are his favorite food. The house was unusually still. Fritz was in the kitchen, and even he seemed to move quietly, as if respecting the trap. The rain had eased outside. You could hear cars on the wet street like distant waves. Then the phone rang. It rang once. Sharp. Danner jerked as if he had been tapped on the shoulder by a stranger. Wolfe's eyes opened fully. He did not move. He simply said, "Answer." Danner's hand shot out, then paused. He looked at Wolfe, and for a second I saw a man who wanted to run. Not from the caller, but from the fact that the caller had bitten the hook. I said, "Pick it up. Your hands won't fall off." He picked it up. "Hello," Danner said, voice too loud. There was no response. Just breathing. It was faint at first, then a little louder, as if the caller leaned closer to the mouthpiece. The breathing was deliberate, not frantic. It was meant to be heard, meant to be intimate. It made the hairs on my arm rise, and I was not even the one holding the receiver. Then came the click, a tiny sound. Metallic, soft, repeated once. Not a loud snap, not a dramatic clack. A worried little click, like metal being turned between fingers. Dana's face went pale. He stared at Wolfe, eyes wide. Wolfe tilted his head slightly, listening like a judge who already knows the verdict. His gaze was distant, focused on sound rather than sight. The breathing continued for 2 seconds longer, then the line went dead. Dana lowered the receiver slowly, as if it were heavier now. "That was him," Dana whispered. "Yes," Wolfe said. Dana's voice shook. "He heard me call," he called back. Wolfe nodded once, ritual restored. I leaned forward. "We need a trace." Wolfe's eyes flicked to me. "We will not get one in time from the telephone company without involving police. That is possible, but premature. We can get more immediately." "More how?" I asked. Wolfe's voice was calm. "By interpreting the click." Dana stared. "Interpreting." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Dana, describe the click as you have heard it before." "Is it the same?" Dana swallowed. "Yes, exactly. Tiny, like a pen cap." Wolfe's gaze sharpened. "Not a smoker's click," he said. I blinked. "How can you tell?" Wolfe's voice was steady. "A lighter cap, a cigarette case, a matchbook. Those make distinct sounds. They have spring and snap. This click is softer, repeated with hesitation. It is not a man lighting a cigarette. It is a man worrying an object between his fingers while he gathers courage to continue his intimidation." Dana's face tightened. "Courage." Wolfe nodded. "A man who breathes on the line is not brave. He uses anonymity because he lacks directness. He counts courage between his fingers." I felt a chill, not from weather, so he is close enough to be nervous. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Yes, the caller is not a professional. He is personally invested. He may fear identification. He may be under instruction. He may be a subordinate executing someone else's plan." Dana whispered, "Then who is the real one?" Wolfe's gaze fixed on him. "We will find out. But the click suggests a habit, and habits belong to people. Someone you have seen worries a small metal object when nervous." Dana stared, and I watched his messy eyes try to scan memory like a shelf. He swallowed. "I do not know." Wolfe's voice remained calm. "You will know, think, in your office, in meetings, in late calls, who fidgets." Dana's face tightened. "There are many." Wolfe's eyes narrowed further. "Not many who are close enough to Mercer and to the Roland dispute." Dana's mouth opened, then closed. He looked suddenly as if a thought had hurt him. "Egan," he whispered. Wolfe's eyebrows rose slightly. "Egan." "Yes," Dana said, voice tight. "Calvin Roland's consultant. He sits in meetings, and he does not speak much, but he carries a small metal thing, a coin or a clip, and he turns it between his fingers. He does it when he is waiting, when he is annoyed, when he is silent." Wolfe nodded slowly. "A man who uses silence and worries metal." Dana swallowed. "But he is not nervous. He is cold." Wolfe's eyes remained steady. "Cold men can be nervous when their control is threatened," I said. "And your call threatened control." Wolfe nodded once. "Yes, the hook has been set. Now we pull gently." Dana's voice shook. "What do you want me to do?" Wolfe looked at him as if Dana had asked what time it was. "You will return to your office. You will behave normally. You will not mention this call. You will observe Egan. You will observe Mr. Pike. You will observe anyone who uses quiet pressure, and you will tell me exactly who fidgets and how." Dana's mouth tightened. "That is dangerous." Wolfe's tone was flat. "Yes, but you have already been in danger for 2 nights. At least now you will be in danger with purpose," I said, and with Wolfe sitting here like a judge. Wolfe ignored me. He looked at the receiver as if it had spoken. "Archie," he said, "we must respond with our own call." I blinked. "Call back." "Yes," Wolfe replied. "But not by telephone. By action. We will force the hand to show itself." Dana swallowed. "How?" Wolfe's eyes were calm. "We will make it believe we have something it wants. The missing half of a cookie has been delivered to my desk. That was a message. We will answer the message." I stared at him. You want to send a cookie? Wolfe's mouth tightened. Do not be childish. We will send information, disguised as bait, and we will watch who comes to eat it. Dana's face was pale, and Clay Mercer. Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. Mr. Dana, you asked me who profits if the writer stays gone. You have named candidates. Now we add one more fact. The breather is likely connected to Calvin Rowland's side. That means Mercer's absence is being used to protect something, possibly the letter, possibly something else. We will discover which by making them think we possess what they fear. Wolfe's gaze was steady. I enjoy clarity. Confusion is vulgar. He leaned back and spoke the line that made Dana flinch and made me grin because it sounded like a verdict delivered before the trial ended. Not a smoker's click, Wolfe said again. A man counting courage between his fingers. Outside, the rain resumed lightly, tapping at the window like a reminder that New York never stops trying to wash nothing clean. Inside, Wolfe had baited the line, the breather had bitten, and now we had a sound, a habit, and a name that had moved from speculation toward probability. The hook was set. Chapter 7. The bakery that sold clean breaks if you follow crumbs long enough. They will take you to a place that sells sugar by the pound and human weakness by the ounce. That is not poetry. It is New York commerce. Wolfe had sent me out again with a list that sounded simple until you tried to do it in a city where everyone has a reason not to remember. Obtain the source of the red icing. Obtain the name of the buyer. Obtain the reason a cookie could be engineered to snap clean. Those were Wolfe's words dressed up as errands. In plain language, it meant I was going to walk into a bakery and ask a man to recall the hands of someone who had paid extra to make a heart break properly. Before I left the brownstone, Wolfe was at his desk with the wax paper and the red cookie half-sealed, in a tin like a bad joke. He had already decided that the sugar was not decoration, it was method. He had also decided the method required a craftsman, and craftsmen remember details other men overlook. Hands, Wolfe said, when I was halfway to the door. I stopped and turned. Hands? Yes, Wolfe replied. Do not ask the baker to remember a face. Faces lie, ask him to remember hands. Hands are honest because they have habits, I said. You sound like you want me to interrogate a piano. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. A piano does not buy hard icing, go. I went. The bakery was on 9th Avenue, the kind of place that survives on two things: morning commuters who need coffee and afternoon, shoppers who need an excuse. Its windows displayed cakes too pretty to be eaten without guilt, and the smell inside was warm, sweet, and almost respectable. The counters were clean, the glass cases gleamed, and the men behind the counter had that baked, in weariness of people who have heard every joke about frosting and are not amused. The owner, a thick-shouldered man with flour on his forearms and a towel tucked into his apron, looked up when I entered. His hair was grey and cut short. His eyes were dark and sharp, and they took in my suit, my hat, my manner, and decided I was not there for a muffin. I bought a coffee first, because it is harder to throw a man out when he is holding your money and your cup. Then I asked to speak to the baker, not the clerk. The clerk started to object. Then the owner waved him off. I am the baker, he said. His voice had the accent of the city, worn smooth by years of customers. What do you want? My name is Archie Goodwin, I said. I work for Nero Wolfe. That name still does things in New York, not miracles, but small shifts. People straighten, people pause. People decide whether to lie. The baker's eyes narrowed slightly, then eased. Wolfe, the fat man, large, I corrected. And yes, I have a question about heart-shaped cookies. The baker snorted. You and every lonely fool this week. Not lonely, I said, concerned. I want to know who ordered a batch of heart cookies with icing that snaps clean. That got his attention. Not because it was romantic, but because it was specific. The baker said, Come back, not here. He led me behind the counter through a swinging door into a work area that smelled less like sweetness and more like labor metal tables, mixing bowls, racks. A big oven humming like an engine, a stack of boxes, everything clean but not pretty. This was where Sugar stopped pretending and became work. He turned to me, "You police?" "No," I said, "private." "Then why should I talk?" "Because," I said, "someone used your product as a message. Someone engineered a clean break. That is not normal cookie business. It is your reputation, even if you do not care about reputations." His eyes held mine for a moment. Then he shrugged. The shrug of a man who has seen enough odd customers to accept odd questions. "You want the truth," he said. "Truth costs." "I have cash," I said. He waved it away. "Not money, trouble. If I talk, trouble comes." "Trouble is already here," I told him. "It is baked into your icing." He stared, then made a short sound that might have been a laugh if he had been happier. "You talk like a salesman." "I work for Wolfe," I said. "We are allergic to sales. We prefer facts." He leaned back against a table, crossed his arms, and said, "Ask 2 questions," I said. "First, did someone order heart cookies and pay extra for hard icing, so it snaps clean, no crumble?" His eyes narrowed. "Yes." "Second," I said, "what did the buyer look like?" He shook his head. "Faces forget faces. Everybody has a face." I nodded. "Then tell me about the hands." That made him blink once quick. Then he looked at me with a little more respect, because he recognized the line of inquiry. "You are not stupid," he said. "All right, hands." He pushed off the table and went to a shelf where he kept a notebook, not a fancy one, just a stained pad with scribbles. He flipped pages with practiced fingers. "A dozen hearts," he said. 2 orders, 1 pink, 1 red. My neck prickled. 2. He nodded. "First order. Pink hearts, a dozen normal icing. Then the man comes back next day, wants red, wants it hard. Says he wants it to snap clean, no crumble." "Those exact words?" I asked. He looked up. "Yes, people ask for soft cookies." "Chewy," he asked for hard. He wanted a break. "Did you ask why?" I said. The baker snorted. "I am not his priest. He pays, I bake. But I remember the hands because they were wrong." "How?" I asked. He held his own hands out, palms down. They were broad, rough, capable. "My hands are steady because I do steady work." His hands. They were steady in the way a man is steady when he is forcing it, like he is holding anger in a glove. "Anger," I repeated. The baker nodded. "He wore gloves, thin leather, but when he put money down, the glove creased. He squeezed the bills, not from fear, from control, and his fingers trembled, just a little, not weak tremble, tight tremble like a spring." "That is good," I said. "Keep going." The baker stared at his notebook for a moment as if reading memory. "He paid extra." He wanted it done quick. He did not smile. He did not flirt. Most men buying heart cookies, they act silly, they make jokes. He did not. He looked like he was buying ammunition. "A man buying ammunition is exactly what I have," I said. The baker's eyes narrowed. "So it is trouble." "It is trouble," I agreed. "Did he give a name?" The baker shook his head. "Cash, no name, but he had a ring." I leaned in. "A ring." He held up his finger. On his right hand, thick, not gold. Silver, maybe, flat top, like a signet but plain. He tapped it on the counter while he waited. Tap, tap, like he counts something. I felt my stomach tighten. A small click. A nervous metal sound. A man counting courage between his fingers. "Did it make a click?" I asked. The baker frowned. "It made a tap, not loud, but yes, metal on wood. A little click too when he twisted it." I took a breath. "You are sure?" He looked at me with irritation. "Do I look unsure? I bake. I watch. Hands are my work." "All right," I said. "How tall?" He shrugged. "Average. Not big. Not small. Coat dark." Had he kept his collar up? He did not want to be remembered. "Did he have a scar?" I asked, because you always ask. "No," the baker said. Nothing special on the face. That is why faces are useless. But the gloves were clean, too clean for the weather, and he smelled like aftershave, sharp, not sweet. That suggested a man who uses scent as another costume. I filed it. Who picked up the box? I asked. The baker's eyes narrowed. He did, second time. First time, he sent a messenger. Some boy with a jacket. The boy signed. Second time, he came himself. He said he did not trust messengers. I pictured the delivery jacket on Wolfe's desk and the way it had been dirty only with rain. Not with sugar, that fit. The boy carried the box. The buyer handled the cookie. Did he ask for wax paper? I said. The baker shrugged. We wrap in wax paper anyway, keeps icing from sticking. Did he request that it be allowed to harden? I asked. The baker nodded. Yes, he said. Do not pack it fresh. Let it set. Let it dry, so it breaks clean. Like a blade, I said. The baker's eyes were steady. Yes. I pulled out my wallet and set a bill on the table. I want one of those, I said. A red heart cookie with hard icing, same as he ordered. The baker's eyebrows rose. You want to eat it? I want to understand it, I said. He took the money, not greedy, just practical. Wait, while he went to fetch one from the rack. I looked around the work area. A bakery is supposed to be innocent, cakes, bread, warmth, a little pleasure. But innocence is a costume too. Sugar is useful because it disarms people. A cookie can pass through hands without suspicion. A cookie box can sit on a counter and look harmless while delivering a message that makes grown men sweat. The baker returned with a box and set it on the table. Red heart, he said. Hard, sets overnight. You can snap it, no crumble. I opened the box and lifted the cookie carefully. The icing was bright, almost crude, the red of cheap dye that wants to be seen. It gleamed under the light. The cookie felt firm, not soft. Now, I said. The baker watched. He did not smile. He was interested in the way craftsmen are interested, curious whether another man will respect the work. He held the cookie with both hands and snapped it. It broke clean. No tearing, no ragged edge, no crumble. A sharp line, the edge shone slightly where the break exposed the interior. It looked almost like a blade, or at least like a thing that could be used as one if you were determined to be melodramatic. I stared at it, and for a moment I understood why someone would choose this as a signal. A clean break is satisfying. It is decisive, it says. This is not an accident. This is a choice. The baker nodded once. See. Yes, I said. I examined the broken edge, fine crumbs, but minimal, and the crumbs clung to the icing as if the icing had been designed to capture them. That was clever. It made a break without mess. It made a break that could be transported, pocketed, placed, delivered. A token, I murmured. The baker frowned. What? Nothing, I said. Did you sell any more of these? He shook his head. Not like that. People want soft. They want sweet. He wanted break. I looked up. Did he say where it was going? The baker shrugged. He said a law office. That is all. That was enough to make my teeth grind. A law office, Morrow and Pike. Pike's fingerprints were on too many parts of this. Did he mention a writer? I asked. The baker shook his head. Numbered. Did he mention a foundation? I asked. Numbered. Did he mention a name? I asked. Number, I sighed. All right, one more thing. The red dye. Is it your usual? The baker's mouth tightened slightly, offended. It is what he paid for. Not my best. Not my usual. He asked for cheap red because he wanted it bright. He wanted it loud. I told him better dye costs. He said, I do not care. I want it obvious. Obvious, I repeated. Yes, the baker said. A man who wants obvious is a man who wants attention. Wolfe's line came to my mind, about a coat left on purpose, being a hand still trying to be seen. The same idea, the same mind, leaves something that cannot be ignored, then watch who reacts. I closed the box and thanked the baker. He watched me, eyes sharp. You going to bring police? Maybe later, I said. Right now, I am bringing Wolfe. The baker snorted. Wolfe is worse than police. Police leave. Wolfe stays. That is why he costs more, I said. On my way out, the clerk at the front counter gave me a smile that was too bright. The smile of a man who sells sugar and does not want to know what it is used for. I left him his ignorance. Back in the street, the rain had eased, and the city looked damp and tired. I carried the bakery box like a ridiculous piece of evidence, which it was. People passed me without looking twice, because in New York you can carry anything if you do it with confidence. If you carry it nervously, you become interesting. I took a cab to the brownstone. Wolfe was in the office when I arrived. Of course, Wolfe is always in the office when he is working, because the office is his stage and his fortress. The room smelled faintly of coffee and paper. The orchids upstairs were receiving their scheduled care, and Fritz was moving quietly in the kitchen, preparing something that would be better than my bakery coffee. I placed the box on Wolfe's desk. Wolfe looked at it as if it were an insult. Food, I said. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Explain. I did, in order, as he likes. I told him about the baker who remembers hands, about the buyer who paid extra for hard icing, so it snaps clean. No crumble, about the trembling hand that was not fear but anger held tight in a glove, about the ring that clicked and tapped, about the buyer picking up the red batch himself because he did not trust messengers, about the cheap dye chosen to be obvious. Wolfe listened without moving. When I finished, he said, "The ring." "Yes," I said. "Signet style, flat top, right hand, tapped and twisted. The baker remembers it clearly." Wolfe nodded slowly. "The click is consistent." "I thought so," I said. "Sounds like your breather, not a smoker's click. A man, worrying metal." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Did the baker see his face? "Nothing special," I said. "Average dark coat collar up, clean gloves, sharp aftershave." Wolfe nodded once. "A man who does not wish to be remembered. Yet he purchases obvious red icing and requests a clean snap. That contradiction is interesting." "Obvious message, hidden identity," I said. "He wants the effect without the blame." Wolfe's gaze held mine for a moment, and I could tell he approved. It always makes me cautious. "What else?" Wolfe asked. He said the buyer mentioned a law office. I said, "Not which one." Wolfe's mouth tightened. "Morrow and Pike." "Likely," I said. "Also, I bought a matching cookie and snapped it." Wolfe's eyebrows rose slightly. "You broke it. Clean," I said. "Sharp edge, minimal crumble. It is engineered. It is a token, boss. Something you can carry, plant, deliver." Wolfe's voice was calm. "Yes, a portable signal, a portable threat," I said. "The crumbs led where crumbs always lead, to someone selling sugar to people with ugly intentions." Wolfe regarded me, poetic and accurate. He leaned back slightly, fingers steepled. "We now have a maker's testimony, a ring, a habit, and a preference for obvious red and clean breaks." I said, "Egan." Wolfe did not answer immediately. "He rarely grants you a conclusion without forcing you to earn it again." He said instead, "We have a man whose hand trembles with anger. We have a man who taps and twists metal while silent. We have a man who prefers to apply pressure without speaking, breathing on a line, counting courage between his fingers. That constellation suggests a particular temperament." "Temperament," I repeated. "Yes," Wolfe said. "A man who is subordinate yet personally invested. A man who has been instructed to frighten and to direct, but who feels anger at being used. The trembling hand is anger restrained. It is not fear," I said. "He is mad at his own job, or mad at the person giving him orders," Wolfe said. "Which is useful. A subordinate with anger will make mistakes." I pointed at the box. "Do you want me to snap that too?" Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Number, we preserve it. We do not indulge." "I snapped one already," I reminded him. Wolfe's tone was dry. You have indulged enough for both of us." He paused, then said, "Archie, you will now do something that will irritate Mr. Pike." "That narrows it down," I said. Wolfe ignored me. "You will deliver a message, not by cookie, by information. You will let it be known, quietly but unmistakably, that Clay Mercer's private notebook and recorder have been located." I stared. "But they have not." Wolfe's eyes held mine. "Correct, we will lie." I raised an eyebrow. "Wolfe," he said, patient as a man explaining arithmetic to a child, "we will lie as bait. The scheme relies on controlling what others believe exists. If we claim we have recovered Mercer's private material, the person who fears it will act. The person who profits from Mercer's silence will move. The person who issues cookies will hurry. And we will watch who hurries," I said. "Precisely," Wolfe replied. "We will also watch who taps a ring while pretending calm." I nodded slowly. "Where do I plant the lie?" Wolfe's gaze sharpened. "With Mr. Danner. He will mention it to his board. He will mention it to his editor. He will mention it to his agent. He will do so in a controlled manner, as if pleased. Word will travel. Word always travels faster than police. And when the word reaches Egan," I said, "he will breathe." Wolfe's mouth tightened, or he will do something more decisive. Either will be useful. I looked at the red cookie in the bakery box and felt my irritation settle into purpose. A clean snap, a bright die, a trembling hand, a ring that clicks, a missing writer, a staged apartment, an unclaimed overcoat, a law partner who uses other people as channels. It was all a performance, and the cookies were the props, I said. "The edge shines sharp as a blade." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Yes, and now we will determine who wishes to cut whom." He leaned forward slightly, voice low and firm. "The baker sold clean breaks. We will now force the buyer to break cleanly in front of us." That was Wolfe in his best form, calm, proud, methodical, and entirely willing to set a trap that would make someone else reveal the truth by trying to protect a lie. I stood. "All right, I will go stir the pond." Wolfe's eyes flicked to me. "Do not fall in." "No promises," I said. "But if I do, I will bring back facts." I left the office, and the brownstone's warmth felt less like comfort and more like a headquarters. Upstairs, the orchids were still indifferent. In the kitchen, Fritz was still competent. In the city, a man with anger in his glove and a ring between his fingers believed he could direct us with sugar. He had sold clean breaks. Now we were going to sell him a clean choice. Chapter 8. The straight line to the trembling hand. Wolfe likes his facts, the way Fritz likes his sauces, reduced, clarified, and served without foam. By 6 o'clock that evening, he had reduced our case to a set of objects and noises that could fit on a dinner plate, and he was in the mood to serve. The office was warm, lamplight steady, rain tapping at the windows as if the weather had developed a hobby. Wolfe sat behind his desk with the expression of a man about to deliver bad news to someone who deserves it. On the desk blotter, arranged with deliberate neatness, were the props of our little sugar drama. A small tin held the red cookie half that had been delivered to the brownstone. The matching bakery box sat beside it, sealed with tape because Wolfe dislikes loose ends and loose lids. A sheet of paper held a faint blush of icing dust brushed from fabric. The unclaimed dark overcoat lay across the back of the yellow chair, like a question waiting to be answered. Beside it, under a paperweight, was the photograph I had taken of Mercer's kitchen smear, red icing on stainless steel like a hurried fingerprint. Wolfe had also written on a clean sheet, in his heavy hand, 6 items in a straight vertical line: clean, snap-hard icing planted coat, red thread, breathing call, metal click. At 10 minutes past 6, the doorbell rang. Fritz admitted Mark Danner and his security. Danner came in first, tidy cuffs, messy eyes, trying hard to look like a man who was in charge of his own company. Behind him came Holt Rayner. Rayner was broad, shouldered, thick through the chest, the kind of man who makes a doorway look narrower. His face was blank in a practiced way, not stupid, just shut down. His eyes were dead, not from cruelty but from habit, the habit of not reacting in front of witnesses. He wore a plain suit that had been bought for utility, not admiration. His hands looked capable and impatient, hands that did not know what calm meant because calm had never paid them. He stopped just inside the office and scanned the room with the flat thoroughness of a man checking exits. His gaze touched the yellow chair and the coat on it and moved on, as if his eyes were trained not to pause. Wolfe did not rise. He never rises. He nodded once to Dana and ignored Rayner completely for a moment, which is one of Wolfe's more effective insults. "Mr. Dana," Wolfe said, "sit." Dana sat on the red leather chair, perched, as if he feared the upholstery might charge him. Rayner remained standing, Wolfe's eyes lifted to Rayner. "You are Holt Rayner." Rayner's voice was low and rough. "Yes, you are employed by Mr. Dana as security," Wolfe said. Rayner did not blink. "Yes." Wolfe nodded, as if confirming a label. "You have, therefore, been present during certain recent disturbances. You have also, therefore, had access to Mr. Dana's telephone number and his habits." Rayner's jaw tightened slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." Wolfe looked at him calmly. "You will." Dana cleared his throat. "Mr. Wolfe, I do not understand why Holt is here." Wolfe's eyes slid to Dana. "Because he is your blind spot." Dana flushed. "Holt has protected me for years." Wolfe's tone stayed mild. "Men are often betrayed by what they hire to protect them. Archie." I had been at my desk waiting. I rose and went to the side table where Wolfe had left a small notepad. I tore off the top sheet and held it up. "This is the number you called this afternoon," I told Dana. "Your midnight number." Dana blinked. "Yes." Wolfe's gaze remained on Rayner, "and the man who called you, breathing into the receiver and clicking metal, wanted you controlled." He used a ritual silence. Breath, a click. Not words, because words can be quoted. A click cannot. Rayner's mouth tightened. "This is nonsense." Wolfe ignored him and spoke as if dictating. "A cookie engineered to break cleanly. A crumb line pointing to a coat rack. Icing dust in a publisher's pocket. A staged apartment too clean to be natural. A red icing smear left near a sink. An overcoat appearing in my hall, unclaimed. Icing dust in its seam. A red thread on its cuff consistent with the crude dye used in that kitchen smear. A breathing call. A metal click. These are not separate events. They are one method applied repeatedly." Dana stared, swallowing. Rayner's face stayed blank, but his shoulders had stiffened. Wolfe leaned back slightly. "Mr. Rayner, deny it, if you wish. But denial is not evidence. It is only noise." Rayner's eyes hardened. "I don't know anything about cookies. I don't bake. I don't prank people." Wolfe's voice was still calm. "Number you do not prank. You intimidate. That is your trade." Rayner's jaw clenched. "You're making accusations." Wolfe nodded once. "Yes, now we test them." He gestured toward the yellow chair. "Archie, the overcoat." I went to the chair and lifted the unclaimed overcoat with care. It was heavy and plain and smelled faintly of street rain and something sharper beneath, like aftershave that tries to disguise itself. I brought it to Wolfe's desk and held it in the light. Wolfe did not touch it. He looked at Rayner. "Do you claim this coat?" Rayner's answer came too fast. Number Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Of course not. It was left in my hall. A coat left on purpose is a hand still trying to be seen. We will now make it visible." He nodded at me. I turned the coat so the inside seam near the pocket faced the lamp, and I brushed it lightly with the small, clean brush Fritz had provided earlier. A faint dust lifted, barely visible, then caught the light as a pale shimmer. It hung for a second like a ghost, then settled on the dark cloth and on my fingertips. Rayner's eyes flicked. It was quick, but it happened. His gaze landed on the dust with the alertness of a man recognizing his own fingerprints. Wolfe's voice was gentle. Icing dust, fine, pale, like fear that learned to float. Rayner's mouth tightened. That proves nothing. Wolfe nodded. Not alone. He gestured toward the photo under the paperweight. Archie. I slid the photograph across the desk, nearer to Rayner's line of sight. The smear of red icing on Mercer's sink gleamed in the glossy print. Wolfe said, "And this is the red smear in Clay Mercer's kitchen. You did not know I had photographed it. You believed cleaning would erase it, but you forgot the message." Rayner's eyes stayed on the photo, a fraction too long. Then he looked away. Dana's voice was tight. "Clay Mercer, you think Holt had something to do with Mercer?" Wolfe's eyes did not move from Rayner. "Mr. Dana, your writer vanished. His apartment was staged. A cookie half was planted. A second half was delivered to my desk. Those acts required access and audacity. Mr. Rayner has both." Rayner's voice was flat. "I've never met Mercer." Wolfe's tone remained mild. "I have not said you met him socially. I have said you entered his apartment." Rayner gave a short laugh without humor. "And how would I do that?" Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "With authority, a clipboard, a confident voice, an overcoat that looks like building staff rather than a trespasser. The doorman log you expected to protect you is imperfect. Building management entries can be written by building management, or by a man who claims to be building management." Rayner's jaw tightened. He was listening now, which was progress. Wolfe leaned forward slightly. "There is one detail you cannot fake easily, Mr. Rayner. The sound." Rayner stared. "Sound, the click," Wolfe said. Rayner's eyes narrowed. "What click?" Wolfe's voice was calm. The breathing calls to Mr. Dana included a tiny metal click, not a smoker's device, not a matchbook, a man counting courage between his fingers. A ring, perhaps. Twisted, a small clip, perhaps. Worried. The baker on 9th Avenue described the buyer of hard-iced heart cookies as a man with a trembling hand and a metal ring that clicked and tapped while he waited. Rayner's face remained blank, but his right hand had shifted slightly, as if seeking something without admitting it. Wolfe watched the hand the way he watches a suspect's eyes. "You will deny you bought cookies?" Rayner's mouth tightened. "I deny it." Wolfe nodded. "Of course, but denial does not stop hands from remembering." Rayner's fingers twitched toward his pocket. It was small, involuntary, the kind of twitch a man makes when he is startled, and his body reaches for comfort. His thumb brushed something inside the pocket, and in the quiet office the sound was unmistakable. Click, soft, metallic. The same tiny, worried sound that had come through the receiver. Rayner froze a half-second too late, and that sound filled the room like a signature. Dana sucked in a breath. His messy eyes widened. "I moved in without thinking. Wolfe had not told me to. He did not need to." This was the moment when a man decides between flight and violence, and Rayner had broad shoulders and dead eyes and hands that did not know calm. I stepped close enough to block, one arm ready, my stance casual on the surface and braced underneath. "Easy," I said. "Nobody's impressed by lunging." Rayner's eyes snapped to me. For an instant they were alive, not dead. Alive with anger held tight, the same anger the baker had described. Wolfe's voice cut through it, soft and cold. "Remove it." Rayner's jaw clenched. "Remove what?" Wolfe did not raise his voice. "The object in your right pocket that you just clicked." Rayner's mouth tightened. "I don't have anything." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "You do. Your hand does not lie as well as your mouth." Rayner hesitated. Then, with a deliberate slowness that was meant to look controlled, he reached into his right pocket and withdrew a ring. It was thick, silver, colored, flat-topped, plain. It looked like the kind of ring a man wears not as decoration but as habit. He held it in his palm for a moment, then slid it onto his finger as if reclaiming it. Wolfe nodded once. "Thank you." Fayfady looked at Dana. "You said Egan fidgets with metal. Mr. Rayner learned the trick by watching him, or he borrowed it to point you in the wrong direction." Dana's voice cracked. "Holt, you were the one calling me." Rayner's eyes stayed hard. He did not answer. Wolfe turned his gaze to Dana. Mr. Danner, you hired him to protect you. He protected you from knowledge. Danner's face drained. Why would he do this? Wolfe's voice remained calm. Because he was hired twice. Rayner's eyes flicked. Wolfe caught it. Wolfe continued. As if reading a ledger, Mr. Pike needed the codicil controlled. Mr. Calvin Rowland needed Mercer's private materials controlled. Mr. Danner needed a missing writer returned quietly. These needs intersect. A man like Mr. Rayner can be employed to apply pressure without leaving obvious marks. Cookies, calls, coats, cleaning, staging. Not murder, necessarily, manipulation. Danner shook his head, stunned. But Mercer. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Mercer possessed a notebook and a recorder, and possibly a letter that could harm Calvin Rowland and the Foundation's position. Mercer also had a book launch that would force him into public view. If he appeared, he might speak. If he vanished, time could be used to retrieve his materials, alter narratives, and bargain. Rayner's jaw tightened. He spoke at last, voice low. You don't know anything. Wolfe's voice remained soft. I know enough. You staged Mercer's apartment to look calm. You planted a cookie half as a signal. You kept the other half as a token. You delivered that half to me to show access and to direct attention. You left an overcoat in my hall to tell me you could enter. You breathed on Danner's line to keep him obedient. You clicked your ring to count courage. You did not bite the cookie because biting is indulgence. You used the cookie as a tool. Rayner's eyes narrowed. So what? Wolfe's voice turned slightly colder. So the writer is alive. Danner's head snapped up. Alive. Wolfe nodded once. Alive. If he were dead, the cookies would be unnecessary. The calls would be unnecessary. Pressure is applied when a living person can still be made to do something, or when a living man still hopes to retrieve something without police. You have been trying to keep this quiet, Mr. Danner. That quiet is the scheme's oxygen. Mr. Rayner requires you quiet, because quiet delays consequence. Rayner's face tightened. You're guessing. Wolfe shook his head slowly. Number I am concluding now. Archie will make a call. I blinked. To who? Wolfe's eyes held mine. To Inspector Kramer. Tell him we have the man who has been applying pressure, and we believe he can lead police to Clay Mercer. Rayner's shoulders shifted. A subtle preparation. I stepped closer. Do not even think it. Rayner's eyes darted to the door. His hands flexed. Wolfe spoke softly, and the softness was more dangerous than shouting. Mr. Rayner, if you attempt violence, you will fail. Archie is competent at inconvenience, and I have arranged witnesses. He nodded toward the hall. The office door was ajar, and I could hear Fritz in the corridor and another set of footsteps. Saul Panzer, likely because Wolfe had the habit of arranging competence, the way other men arrange flowers. Rayner's jaw tightened. He stood still. I went to the phone and called Kramer. I told him the essentials. Kramer's voice was rough with irritation, but the irritation had an edge of interest when I mentioned Clay Mercer and a staged apartment. He said he would come, and I believed him because Kramer enjoys arriving when Wolfe is right and making it look like he is in charge of the result. While we waited, Wolfe finished it, as he always does, with reason alone. He looked at Rayner, and his voice was almost gentle. You chose cookies because they are harmless in appearance. You chose a clean snap because it makes a tidy token. You chose hard icing because it allows transport and planting without crumbs. You chose a coat because coats move through doors. You chose breath because breath is anonymous. You chose the click because the click is you. Rayner's mouth tightened. I didn't hurt anyone. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. You frightened people. You entered homes. You staged scenes. You abducted a man to obtain paper. That is harm. Rayner stared, anger and calculation mixing. He's alive. Danner exhaled hard. Relief and outrage tangled. Where is he? Rayner did not answer. Wolfe's voice stayed soft, almost conversational. The cookie was not bitten because the hand that held it was too busy trembling with control. Rayner's eyes flicked to Wolfe, and for a second, the dead look broke. It was not guilt. It was resentment at being seen, Then there was a knock, heavy, official, and Inspector Kramer entered with 2 detectives. The office filled slightly with the smell of wet wool and authority. Kramer took one look at Wolfe's desk, at the coat, at the cookie tin, at Rayner's build, and his mouth tightened. "Wolfe," he said. "What now?" Wolfe's tone was calm. "Inspector, you have a missing writer. This man can lead you to him." Kramer looked at Rayner. "Name?" Rayner did not answer. Kramer nodded to one of the detectives. "Take him." As the detective moved in, Rayner finally spoke, voice low. "You want Mercer? Fine, but you don't get the notebook." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "You have it." Rayner's jaw clenched. Kramer's eyes sharpened. "You have it." Rayner's shoulders sagged a fraction. That sag told me more than words. It told me the scheme had been about paper all along. Wolfe watched it with quiet satisfaction. "Inspector Kramer, retrieve Mercer first, then retrieve paper. Time grants permission only until someone revokes it." Kramer grunted. "You and your sayings." He motioned, and Rayner was guided out. Dana sat very still, as if his company had just been rearranged on Wolfe's desk, the way Wolfe rearranges facts. Dana's voice was hoarse. "Mr. Wolfe, will Mercer be all right?" Wolfe's expression softened slightly. "He will be alive. That is what we can conclude. The rest will depend on how long Mr. Rayner believed he could keep issuing permits." Dana swallowed, and Pike. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Pike will be addressed when the police have Mercer. A lawyer's courage often evaporates when his hired hands are arrested." Dana nodded slowly, and his messy eyes looked cleaner, for the first time since he had walked into our house with sugar in his pocket. The rain tapped the window again. The brownstone remained warm. Upstairs, the orchids continued their calm schedule, indifferent to cookies and kidnappings. Wolfe leaned back, and the case, which had begun with a heart that did not get eaten, ended in the only way Wolfe truly likes. A clean line, a trembling hand revealed by its own small click, and a quiet revocation of permission.